So, Prabhaun da, croeso I gyd. Good afternoon, welcome to the virtual meeting on the 25th of November 2020. Translation is being provided by Amy. I'll now move over to introductions of the leaders of the groups. Is Councillor Morgan with us yet?
Yes, I'm with you. Can you? It's breaking up a little bit, sorry, but I am here, yes.
Okay. You're muted, Andrew.
I can hear you, yes. Just to confirm that we're happy to proceed.
Okay. Councillor Jarman?
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'd like to declare an interest on item 8, financing of the 21st Century Schools Capital Programme.
I haven't got that. I haven't got that far yet, Councillor Jarman. I'm just introducing the leaders.
Okay.
So, you're leader of the Plaid Cymru group?
Councillor Pauline Jarman, leader of the Plaid Cymru group and leader of the opposition.
Thank you. Councillor Powell?
Councillor Mike Powell, leader of RCT Independent Group.
Thank you, Councillor. Is Councillor James with us this evening?
I am, yes. So Councillor Joel James, leader of the Conservative Group on RCT Council.
Your speech was very blurred then, Councillor James.
Yes, unfortunately, I'm still in work, but hopefully only for about 5 minutes.
And if there's any issues, then your deputy will take over for you.
Unfortunately, he sends his apologies. He can't make tonight.
No, so if you can, then nobody can. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Right. First item, any declarations of interest? Councillor Jarman?
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Officer. I'd like to make a declaration in relation to item 8 on today's report, financing of 21st Century Schools Capital Programme using prudential borrowing, on the basis of having been granted a dispensation to speak on all matters that relate to budget issues and vote accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rees? Councillor Rees, your declaration of interest?
Just need to unmute Councillor Rees, please.
Yeah, okay. I had unmuted and been muted again. Yeah, thank you, Presiding Officer. I'd like to declare an interest on, again, on item 8, a personal interest only, as I'm a governor on Ysgol Gynradd Gymraeg Aberdare.
Thank you. Councillor Lewis?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Personal interest pertaining to the COVID-19 update. A close relative of mine works for Public Health Wales vaccines team. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. No other members have indicated. The next item are announcements. I'm going to go to you first, Councillor Jarman.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'd like to pay a tribute, and it's with great sadness, to my friend and former colleague, Adrian Hobson, who represented Taftswell. Adrian served in my cabinet from 1999 as cabinet member for environmental improvement. He was a person of great intellect and compassion, and was one of the lead advocates committed to the closure of that environmental disaster known as Nantygwydd on Tip in Ystrad, alongside Councillor Geraint and former councillor for Ystrad, Sid Morgan. Adrian was a public servant throughout his life, and his service was founded on his guiding principle that people mattered. He had a very successful career as a civil servant and had only just retired from service. But he and his wife Sian did manage to travel to some parts of the world in the early days of his retirement that dreams are made of. Adrian was a Cynon Valley boy, born and bred in Hirwaun. His funeral is on Wednesday, the 2nd of December, 12:45 at Llwydcoed Crematorium. Presiding Officer, I am sure that this council will join with me in sending deepest sympathy and sincere condolences to Sian, Adrian and Erin, his sister and the families. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jarman. We all do for sure. but there is a problem with your audio. Broke up towards the end. So I'm not sure if it's my end or your end. I'll continue, and if it carries on, then we'll address it later. Councillor Leishon, you have an announcement?
Yes, thank you, Presiding Officer. I'd just like to remind councillors about our RCT Santa appeal, which closes at 4 o'clock this Friday, that's the 27th of November. I know loads of you have already sent vouchers in, and thank you very, very much. This year we are doing it by vouchers, and we're going to give some special children in RCT an extra special Christmas. If you're not sure how to do it, just dial 425-025, where Santa's helpers will talk you through the process, or you can go onto the RCT website. I'd be really grateful if you'd all join in and just make this really, really special. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bevan, you have an announcement?
Yes, thank you, Presiding Officer. I'll be as brief as I can. I think members will be pleased to know that recently the council has been awarded a highly commended award for the planning excellence with the development at Cleescadden in Pontypridd. The award ceremony was online and can be followed on YouTube. One thing to note in this project, it is worthy of note that there was no snagging list when the task was completed, which is very unusual in large-scale developments. So good news for Rhondda Cynon Taf, and indeed may it long continue.
Thank you, Councillor. We now move on to the next item, which is the suspension to standing orders. Councillor Webber, you have indicated.
Thank you. Thank you, Presiding Officer. As members will be aware, in order to facilitate the smooth running of today's meeting through Zoom, group leaders have agreed in advance that where a vote is taken on any item, the individual group leader will exercise the vote on behalf of their members present for the item in question. In order to implement the revised voting procedures, can I move suspension of Council Procedure Rule 15.1, which states that a matter will be decided by a simple majority of those members voting and present in the room at the time the question was put, and I move as such.
Thank you, Councillor. Leader, are you seconding?
Yes, happy to second and support that on behalf of the Labour Group.
Members, we have the motion to suspend Council Procedure Rule 15.1 in accordance with the Constitution. I will now accept the consent affirmation of all members present unless any member dissents. Thank you, members. Mr. Hannigan, would you confirm the numbers, please?
Thank you, Presiding Officer. No problem. Yes, I can confirm currently 42 Labour members in attendance, 16 Plaid Cymru members in attendance, 1 Conservative group member in attendance, and 17 RCT independent group members in attendance, Presiding Officer.
Thank you. Next item are the minutes. Could I ask for members' approval of the minutes of the virtual council meeting on the 7th of October as an accurate record?
Happy to move for the Labour Group.
Second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jarman, okay?
Yes, Chair.
Councillor James, I'm sure you are. Thank you. Statements. I have no statements. Next item, members' questions. Mr. Wilkins will record the timing. I now invite Councillor Rees to ask a question to the Leader of the Council, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the Leader make a statement on the Test, Trace, Protect regional service, please?
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rees. To say this is a successful regional collaboration between RCT Council, Merthyr Council, Bridgend and Cwmtaf Health Board. It's overseen by a regional strategic partnership between the representatives of the various organisations. Public Health Wales is involved. Obviously, we report back to Welsh Government, Chief Execs, etc. There's a real team effort across the public service areas. Kelechi, who is the Public Health Officer in Cwmtaf Magano chairs the overall board, and Paul Meir as our director then is the vice chair. I have to say that there's a number of streams of work around surveillance, testing, done by the various partners as such, in terms of the Circle Testing Centre, which is in Abercynon. In terms of the data then, it is captured. Our team's lead on that as a collaborative, as I say, across a number of local authorities, working with the contact tracing teams. These teams have had to be increased during the firebreak. We did take the opportunity to recruit more staff for contact tracing. You would be aware of the significant numbers just ahead of the firebreak, especially in the Rhondda Cyntaf and Cwmtaf area. That did impact slightly on our ability to hit the targets in terms of where we would want to be. I have to say that throughout the whole pandemic, the contact tracing team covering our area has exceeded the targets just about all the time. And actually, I think at one point when I saw a presentation back a few weeks ago, or maybe just over a month or two ago, the data to date showed that actually it was amongst the best in Wales in terms of the percentage of contacts we were getting to. Clearly, that was a little bit impacted in terms of the peak we had a few weeks ago. But as I say, we have recruited a number of extra staff now in trying to take that forward to make sure we got capacity in the system. In terms of communication and engagement, is message of support from test and trace to try and influence behaviour and provide essential information. That goes into the council's communication. So, for example, where we know from the track and trace teams, and they understand that, say, if there's a particular incident or an outbreak linked with a workplace, whether it's linked with the hospitality establishment, that information is obviously captured and fed back, and that also informs then some of the proactive work, both in terms of enforcement and advising businesses. So there is a significant piece of work that continues 7 days a week. I have to say the staff do work extended hours. I have to give thanks to the staff, both internal staff who have been reallocated, and I have to say many staff who have been reallocated or haven't complained. They just got on with it. They're really keen to make an effort to help us get through this period. And also then those additional staff we've recruited. Just to say that in terms of that wider partnership, they are then working on other areas. Obviously, as we are developing plans, we'll update later a little bit about the planned mass testing, but also about what happens in terms of vaccine and mass vaccination of the population in Rhondda Cyntaf. Clearly, the Health Board is leading heavily on that, but the local authorities are providing all the necessary support mechanisms for that. So I'll just stop there now. Thanks.
Thanks, Leader. Councillor Rees, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Presiding Officer, I do. I just wondered, Leader, if you were able to tell Council how the performance of the Test Trace Protect service in Wales compares with the service in England?
Leader?
I think overall, not just the Rhondda Cyntaf and Cwmtaf figures show a real comparison, but the all Wales figures actually are much, much better than in England. In Cwmtaf, I think it's 98% of confirmed cases, and I think it's about 87% around that sort of figure of contacts we've got to. In terms of where Wales is, the overall figure I think is around the 92% in terms of cases, and 82% of contacts as well, similar. But the situation in England is quite a few percent below that, and actually it has fluctuated in terms of I think the test and trace system in England has improved in recent weeks over the last month or two. But if you go back just probably 2 months ago, the stark difference between the operation being run in England compared to Wales was quite striking in terms of the rates of contacts. I have to say a lot of this comes back to, I personally believe, is that running it through the public sector, involving local health boards, using local authority staff, our own environmental health office staff who are used to running these sort of operations, but obviously not on this major scale. Using that local knowledge and the local information is actually why you get the better result. My own view is that the public sector is doing this far better than the private sector in England. And I think that's borne out now by the fact the Prime Minister has directed more of the test and trace now is to go through local authorities and local public health teams in England. Thanks.
Thank you, Leader. The next question, Councillor Pickering, you also have a question for the Leader?
Yes, thank you, Presiding Officer. Can the Leader update on progress on Storm Dennis repairs across the county, please?
Leader?
Okay, thanks, Councillor. I've made a number of notes for this update because it is quite exceptional, the amount of work that's ongoing. Just to say, first of all, I can't list everything here, otherwise I'll take up far too much time of this session of Council for questions. But there will be a report coming to Cabinet in December, which is a substantial document, which will also cover a lot of the progress work that's been made. But in terms of the damage to structures, etc., and the repair work, although we've had COVID this year, which in some cases may have slowed down some of the works, because obviously it's have to be done safely, it's restricted access to some of the contractors, some of the designers, etc., maybe being furloughed by the private sector where we had to bring in additional support. But I just want to stress that the vast bulk of these schemes are progressing. We're on site in a number of locations, repairing structures, repairing flood assets, or if we're not actually starting construction, we're at the phase of designing them, working through exactly what is needed. And I can tell you that we've had a number of significant bids approved by Welsh Government, and we have a substantial pipeline which is being prepared. And I'm aware that next year, Rhondda Cynon will be bidding to Welsh Government for in excess of £4 million on further flood schemes. So there is an awful lot of progress being made, but that will be outlined far more in the Cabinet report, which all members will get to see now in December. Thanks.
Thank you, Leader. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Pickering?
Yes, I do, Presiding Officer. Thank you, Leader. Can you also update me on the progress of the schemes in my Ennisable ward, please?
Leader?
Okay, thanks. I did wonder if you were going to ask about any local schemes. I've asked for the whole list for your area. In terms of general capital works, first of all, which are not actually linked directly to any Storm Dennis, etc., that's Glencoe Transport retaining walls. 2 walls have been repaired and replaced there, increasing the scope of the works undertaken. This is the main road, I believe, which is running up from Glencoe to Ennisable, the wall on the left-hand side, as I recall it. We've also done the repairs to the footbridge on the public right-of-way, which is the YC72 right-of-way in your ward. And in terms of actual flood damage works and works following Storm Dennis, Corporate Estates have been dealing with the footbridge on Gethley Road leading to Windsor Colliery and the culvert on our location. Clear Terrace investigations are ongoing into the wall and drainage. I believe Clear Terrace is the location I met NRW at, where they've done now dredge into the river and they've taken out some shoals of debris. I know we've also built up a small section of the stone wall where water to the river came up over the footway into the street as well. Mill Road Culvert, currently with Red Star, to our partners in terms of design and replacement on a new structure. That is probably one of the schemes I mentioned will go into next year's programme, where we are now bidding for funding. We've got footbridge on the FP72 route, which is parapets and access, rail repairs, deck replacement, and has been undertaken. So there's a substantial amount of work there being also considered for next year. And then Mysafannon footbridge is to be replaced, and the design with that work is ongoing. And again, that's likely to be a scheme that we will undertake next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Leader.
The next question is from Councillor Stacey, and this question is to Councillor Webber, the Deputy Leader. Councillor Stacey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can the Deputy Leader answer the question, how is the Council supporting employment in Rhondda Cynon Taf during the COVID-19 pandemic? Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Graham, for the question. There are a number of programmes that provide direct employment support and assistance to our local residents. The global pandemic has had a huge effect on families and individuals through job losses or furlough. In terms of direct employment support, the Council recently advertised that 10 further employment opportunities through 6 apprenticeships and 4 graduate positions have become available. This is on top of the annual recruitment programme, which for this financial year has already seen 21 graduates and 26 apprentices being recruited over a 3-phase period. So in total, 25 graduates, 32 apprentices. This has allowed us to support the local economy by providing well-paid jobs, and also it allows us to build resilience within the Council. In addition, our Step in the Right Direction traineeship and Care to Work schemes have continued. Between April and October, 5 trainees have been recruited under the Step in the Right Direction programme, with placements secured within parks, social care and ICT. 32 referrals for care to work were also made over the same period. So despite the pandemic, staff from the service are continuing to provide a number of other employment programmes for a range of individuals, with virtual one-to-one support being provided where possible.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Stacey?
Muted. I can't hear.
Councillor Stacey?
Sorry, my fault, I do apologise. The pandemic has had a tremendous impact on the well-being of workers. Could you therefore please make a statement on the Stay Well at Work programme and outline how has it helped the businesses and workforces throughout this pandemic?
Right, the Staying Well at Work programme is led by RCT and is part funded by the European Social Fund through Welsh Government. Myself and I think it was Councillor Rob Bevan attended the official opening. It provides direct and rapid access to specialist support at no cost to small businesses and their employees. The support ranges from business HR support to dedicated occupational health and also clinical interventions. An example of that is counselling, physiotherapy and coaching that may help people to remain in work or to return to work sooner if they have been off. This service has continued to support small and medium enterprises throughout the county borough. The delivery has been modified to provide an uninterrupted service, including virtual consultations, telephone conversations and face-to-face appointments where required, following a risk assessment in a COVID-secure environment. So I hope that answers your question, Councillor Stacey.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Next question. Councillor Jarman, you have a question for the Deputy Leader?
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Which council staff are designated key workers, please?
Deputy Leader.
Right, thank you, Councillor Jarman. I'll answer that as best I can. On the 23rd of October, the WLGA held its AGM. Leaders throughout Wales from all political persuasion praised the council workforces. And in its response to Council, our own leader, who is also leader of the WLGA, led the support, and part of what he said reads, "The key work of our council staff with our partners will continue to guide us through these dark times," and I'm sure that that's a sentiment we all share. We know the staff are the council's best assets, and we are grateful for their efforts and commitment in supporting our communities in this county borough. There are some areas that provide direct and essential frontline services, which is why they have the key worker classification. And we know that their ongoing contribution is vital to keep our services running. So in these difficult, challenging and certainly unprecedented times, based on that description, then key workers would include health and social care staff, school-based staff, including teachers and support staff, frontline service areas that require critical business continuity to include street care, childcare and cleansing. I have to say as well that staff who process and deliver the business support grants to try and keep our economy going play another key component in the process. Leisure service staff who've been redeployed to support some of the most vulnerable in our communities by distributing food. So in terms of the staff in this council, I would define them all as key workers, and this administration would like that to be a matter of record, all recognised as such. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Jarman?
Yes, Presiding Officer. Can I thank Councillor Webber for confirming which council staff are designated key workers. On the 2nd of October, we were advised as members by email that a COVID-19 test booking line had been created for key workers and their families through the Council's Occupational Health and Wellbeing Unit. That listed the definition of key workers in an education setting, health and social care setting, including children or adults awaiting placement, but it also identified that staff, and I know the Deputy Leader made brief reference to it, in areas that require business continuity. It was said that they also qualified. I sent an email back immediately asking if I could be advised what category of staff can claim to be key workers under that description. I didn't receive a reply. On the 9th of October, members were advised of a further staff update and the same description in areas that require business continuity. That was used as well as those key workers you mentioned specifically in your reply relating to social care and education. And in my earlier comments. I sent a follow-up email for clarification, and as of now, I still don't have an answer. So my supplementary question is, as Cabinet Member for Human Resources, can you answer the question I raised in those 2 unanswered emails, please?
Deputy Leader.
Councillor Jarman, if you send me details, I will find out why you didn't receive a reply, and I'll ensure that a reply to you is forthcoming.
Thank you.
Chair, could I raise a query if I could, Presiding Officer? With regards to that supplementary question, I don't know what that supplementary question was because I've not seen those emails. Is that something that's allowed or because?
Yes.
You know.
Yes, it was allowed. The supplementary question was to Councillor Webber and she answered it. Thank you, Councillor James. Let's move on quickly. Councillor Jones, you have a question for Councillor Bevan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the Cabinet Member please highlight what support is available to businesses in RCT during the corona pandemic?
Councillor Bevan.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I thank Councillor Jones for his question? Our officers have been working very closely with businesses locally, and indeed they've been going through the raft of measures that have come through from UK and Welsh Government and giving support and advice to those businesses based on the grant aid and other advice dealing with COVID. If I can give you some example, in terms of non-domestic rate support, we've supplied nearly £44 million worth of funding to 3,759 businesses. There were some businesses who weren't eligible for this support, but they've been signposted to other means of support. Recently, the Welsh Assembly Government announced a firebreak lockdown grant, and this closed recently on Friday. As members may be aware, it was somewhat oversubscribed nationally, but in Rhondda Cynon Taf, we received 2,000 applications with a value of £5.6 million. The Welsh Government also brought forward a business startup grant, which we saw with 50 applicants receiving £130,000 for startups. We have other support programmes in the council, as members will be aware. The Enterprise Support Grant, Town Centre Maintenance Grant, and the Pontypridd Property Improvement Grant. And this, during this COVID period, has resulted in £300,000 worth of funding being available. We've even changed our other grants in the council and introduced 3 further new schemes. One is the Town Centre COVID-19 Recovery Grant, a major projects investment fund, and a flood resilience grant. This was reported to Cabinet recently, and I would recommend members read the minutes on those reports.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Mr. Wilkins, according to my timing, we have had our 20 minutes. Can you confirm, please?
Yeah, that's time.
Thank you. There will be no supplementary question. We'll now move on to the council work programme. Mr. Hannigan.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. Just want to take the opportunity with the update just to remind members that the Health Board's chair and its new chief executive are due to attend our next council meeting, which is scheduled to be the 16th of December. And then just in terms of the forward work programme, it has been identified originally for an update on the local government settlement to be provided at that meeting. However, we are now aware that the publication of that information is likely to be later on in December. So we'd obviously look to report that information through the various committees at the most appropriate time following the publication of that information. So that'll be an item that now will not form part of that 16th of December meeting. And obviously, as members will also be aware, there will be the need to consider recommendations from the Appointments Committee for Council to ratify the decisions of that meeting on the 20th of November. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Hannigan. Next item, can I ask the Leader of the Council to present an update to the coronavirus, please? Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, President Officer. I'm just going to give a very brief update at this week's council meeting. Obviously, since the fire break, we've seen cases in Wales and certainly in RCT reducing. At the height of the second wave, if we call it that, we were seeing cases in excess of 250 on 2 days, close to 300 cases. We are now at around 100 cases per day. We've seen a couple of days where it's been a little bit below that or just over, but it's around 100 cases per day. So we have seen some improvement there. In terms of the positivity rate, again, if you go back a few weeks ago at the second peak, we were looking around 30% positivity rate in terms of the numbers of the cases, where people were presenting with symptoms and then being tested. That, as I understand, is around 15%. It was just below 15% a couple of days ago. So you can see the figures that I outlined there. It does show there has been an improvement since the fire break. However, I know Mr. Mead can confirm, but the conversations we've had with the Health Board, with Kelechi, as I say, as the Director of Public Health, and the conversations I've had with Welsh Government are now showing that the downward trend that we saw continuing for probably just over 2 weeks seems to have flattened, and potentially we are now starting to see an increase overall. So the indications are that probably another few days we'll have a much better understanding, but it does appear that, as was expected, that the fire break of 17 days has bought us a period of time. If you look at the graph, it probably puts us back just a matter of weeks from where we were. The issue with this is that clearly the nations have announced some relaxation of rules for a period of 5 days over Christmas. If we are to make sure that the numbers do not start to grow at an alarming rate before Christmas, then further intervention may be needed in the coming days and weeks. I think it has already been highlighted by Welsh Government in the last 48 hours. They are considering further measures, and my understanding is it is likely in the next week that we will get an announcement from Welsh Government on further interventions and rules that will be required over the next few weeks to get us through to the Christmas period. There's also been some speculation and discussion about, would we need a post-Christmas fire break? That is something that's been discussed across the 4 nations to try and get a joined-up approach to any interventions that are needed. Clearly, it'll depend on where the cases are at the time. Just want to say as well, there's an awful lot of work going on from council staff. I have to commend not just our senior officers, but even frontline staff who are being involved in some of the work around how we take forward the joint working with the Health Board around vaccine centres. So that is well advanced. I know the military planners are involved in that as well. Certainly our corporate estates team are supporting the Health Board and have been out visiting places. You would have seen yesterday the First Minister highlighted that the Lower Cynon Valley, which has seen some of the highest cases in Wales per 100,000, has been highlighted as an area where we will possibly carry out mass testing. I'll be in a position, hopefully, to confirm what is happening on that in the next 24 to 48 hours. But it was announced yesterday by the First Minister publicly that we did put in a submission to Welsh Government back about 10 days ago, maybe 2 weeks ago now, to extend the pilot from Merthyr into the Lower Cynon. And I know that Welsh Government is also looking to extend in the pilot potentially into another local authority where there are increasing cases. So there'll be more information on that, I would think, by the next update, which we'll give in 2 weeks' time, both on that and on the vaccine centres in the event that mass vaccination does get the go-ahead. But that is something that we're obviously watching. Just want to say that in terms of the deaths in Rhondda and Taff. We are still nowhere near the level of what we were seeing during the first wave. However, now it is sad to report that we are seeing now, unfortunately, some deaths in care homes. We're still seeing some deaths in hospital, but we're also seeing some deaths in community as well. This isn't, something as people back, if we went back probably 2 months ago, people were saying this is a nonsense and all these rules and restrictions. It's no more than the common cold. It's no more than the flu. The reason the cases were low 2 months ago, maybe 10 weeks ago, was because we had rules, etc. Even with the various restrictions we've had over the recent number of weeks, we are still seeing the deaths on quite a substantial scale. I think the number of deaths in Rhondda and Taff in the last week alone is something that we should all be very concerned about. Hopefully those figures will continue to come down a little bit as we see the benefit of the fire break. But let's be under no illusion, until the vaccination is rolled out next year, and it isn't just a case of if vaccinations start to be given out over Christmas into January, doesn't mean we can go back to our normal way of living. This may be another 3, 4, 5 months at least yet, because until a majority of the population is vaccinated, you will not get that herd immunity. And that was the update that we received yesterday from the Director of Public Health. So what I would say is officers will provide a lot more stats and figures and probably do a presentation to members at next month's council meeting, which is, I believe, is in about 2 weeks' time. Thanks, Presiding Officer.
Leader, is Mr. Mee going to present anything this evening or not?
I don't believe there's a presentation for tonight's meeting.
Okay.
That'll be at next month's meeting. But if there was any specific areas we had to address, we could cover it. But if not, then the latest data and the facts will be presented at next month's meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Right, on that basis that the update has come and we'll know a lot more within 24 hours, I'm going to restrict this to the leaders of the groups in its present form. Councillor Jarman?
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. I've got very mixed views about the plans for Christmas, to be honest with you. There's pluses, but I can see a lot of minuses as well post-Christmas, and I'm dreading the prospect of the infection rate throughout the county reflecting what we presently enduring in Cynon Valley. Day on day, cases are drawn to my attention in this small community of Mountain Ash, and it is a real worry. I would support a mass testing process for the Cynon Valley, but I've been asked by someone who has had COVID if they could get it again. I said, well, I really don't know. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I don't know whether there is a reliable answer to that question. I am aware that locally there are infection rates in the residential sector, and that again is a grave concern, but I'm also conscious of the need for us to enable relatives of our residents in the elderly population to have visitors. And I wondered if the leader had any information on the types of things that the Welsh Government announced this week, which would enable visits to the residential sector by having these pods. I don't know whether that is something that is sufficiently advanced for the leader to comment on.
Leader, do you want me to go to the other leaders first?
If I just answer very quickly on that, it is a conversation that we've had with Welsh Government. In terms of the pods, I can't give you much details on that, Councillor Jarman, other than I'm mindful about the timeline in terms of installing them, etc. But what I can say is I had a conversation with Geo Isingrini last week, I think it was the end of last week, about where we are with visits to care homes. Just want to say, first of all, end-of-life care visits have been maintained throughout the pandemic. We're in a situation where we are now allowing external visits, and where possible, officers are looking about where it is safe for internal visits to take place, where a care home has plenty of space or has a conservatory, where there may be the opportunity to have something set up. I know that there are discussions going on. I believe Jill Bow and other officers within social care who are leading on this are obviously also having conversations with private homes. Certainly, I think in the run up to Christmas, we do need to allow some more family time and visits. But I just come back to this point that I know it is incredibly difficult for family members, not being allowed always to be in a care home visiting loved ones. But it isn't just the possibility they putting their loved one at risk. What I would really never want to see happen is that we relax the rules too soon, or at a time when infection is still high in our area. A member of the public goes into a care home and knowing with no symptoms, not knowing that they may have the virus, and then there is an outbreak, and sadly we lose a number of residents, etc. That's something we just can't risk. So it is getting the balance right. But if I could just ask the officers who are on the line, that perhaps maybe we could send an update to members later this week of where we are on those discussions about care home visits, so everybody has that picture.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I would concur with Councillor Morgan with regards the the vaccine being the only sort of acceptable way out of this pandemic that we find ourselves in. Unfortunately, how that is administered is going to be a bit of an issue, because at the end of the day, we live in a democratic society, and whether or not we end up having the vaccine administered at your request rather than forced upon, I don't think we're going to be on the forced upon. And that's one of the tricky ones, because we've seen, and I'll say now, we haven't had a senior leadership team meeting recently, so I haven't had access to some of the data Andrew may have on the heat maps, etc. But before RCT went into lockdown, we had reports and from Public Health Wales, where 2 areas in the Rhondda were on the rise. After we went into lockdown, we had other areas of the Rhondda and the Cynon. We've had the reports of the bus trip, etc. If people were doing that before lockdown and before the fire break, then we're not going to have much of a guarantee, really, that these people are going to be clever enough to go and get a vaccine, are we? And that's where I think we're going to have a bit of an issue. With regards then to the care homes, I take on board, the difficulties that are there, but we also got to remember that some of the incidences in the care homes were brought about by the health board, moving people out of the hospitals into the care homes, and I got FOIs in from all of the health boards and people within Wales, and it wasn't just Wales as well, they did in England, probably in Scotland and Northern Ireland, where people were being moved into care homes without any test, or had a test positive but still going into the care homes, and that really, really frightened a lot of people in the care homes, especially the people who are in there working as carers. And I hope we don't see anything like that if we do end up having an increase. I did ask before we went into this fire break, what would be the outcome if at the end of the 2-week period in RCT, the transmission level, the RVAR rate, was still above 1. And I think, and I haven't seen any information recently, but if I take it that it's still above 1, it means that we still got that issue, unless, of course, Andrew, you have more information. As I say, I didn't have a senior leadership team meeting recently, so I wouldn't know. But if we are above 1, then has that only just sort of decreased it slightly, but we're still going to then go into another major outbreak of coronavirus, especially after we have the Christmas celebrations, etc. And I'm just wondering what sort of actions are being taken, or what plans are being put into place if we end up in another situation where we find that the health board is going to get, or the hospitals are going to get overwhelmed again.
You want to come at this point?
Thank you for that.
Morgan?
Yeah, I think a lot of this data, perhaps next month, in 2 weeks' time, will be helpful to members. But just to say that when we came out to the fire break, because of the lag in terms of infection, the positivity, it turning into symptoms, being tested, etc., there is a lag very much in reporting. So at least 10 days into the fire break, you don't start to see the benefit until about 10 days, 2 weeks in. So as you come out to the fire break, you continue to see the benefit. What I would say is that the R number, anything over 1 means it's exponential growth. Anything below 1 means it's reducing. Well, the very fact that the numbers, daily cases, are now roughly about a third, just over a third of where they were, and the positivity rate has come down from 30% to about 15%. that would suggest of all the slides and the graphs I've seen from the public health team that I met yesterday with the chief executive, that all indicates that the R number must have been below 1, because week on week, the number of cases over this period now was substantially dropped. What I'm saying is that it appears that the reduction has now stopped, and there is some very early evidence to suggest that the number of cases may be now starting to grow again in Rhondda Cynon or across Cwm Taf Morgannwg as a wider area. But I do think that it's difficult. That's why we're not doing the slides right now, is because the information is only a few days on the bottom of that curve. It could well be that in 2 or 3 days we continue to see a benefit, or it could be that in another 2 or 3 days we see growth. So we'll pick this up now at the next meeting, I think.
Councillor James.
I asked Andrew on that as a supplementary, because with the track, test and trace, it's going to pick up, and we're going to see the those who have symptoms of the coronavirus. But I'm sort of concerned with the asymptomatic carriers of the virus, and I think that is why we really are going to need a more robust and whole borough-wide track, test and trace regime if we're going to actually get to the position before, well, where we're actually in control. I know I've asked about it before, but would we be looking to actually have a centre in Rhondda, the Cynon and the Taff Ely area, or would we be looking for the track, test and trace for getting to those asymptomatic carriers spread throughout the wards or in sort of local communities?
Right, Councillor. Councillor Morgan, do you want to come back on that before Councillor James?
Yeah, just to be clear that the mass testing pilot that we're going to be hopefully taking part in, that's about identifying people who don't have symptoms. So this is about testing the general masses who may actually think they're fit and well. It could be me right now. I could have COVID right now, sitting here. I haven't got a cough, I haven't got a temperature, I'm absolutely fine. But I could certainly have COVID, be non-symptomatic, and I could go out tomorrow, I could go and hug my parents, see my partner, whatever, and I could be spreading the virus. So that's what we're looking at in terms of the lateral flow testing. And it's important to see whether or not this works, what the benefit is. And that's why, obviously, we're doing a small proportion, if it goes forward, of just under 30,000. Whereas, obviously, doing a major operation of almost 250,000 residents is a much bigger operation. And that's something we need to see what the pilot gets back to us. In terms of the track and trace, so I have to just come back and say that the track and trace teams, it is working really well, I think, in Rhondda Cynon Taff. And the difference is that we, at this height across the Cwm Taf Morgannwg area, we were seeing in excess of 400 cases coming through overnight every single day during the height of the second peak now, back a few weeks ago. That is now dropped down to around the 200 mark. So we are seeing significantly less cases coming through to track and trace, which means then they do some of the back tracing where they are then trying to identify where people may have got it. But I come back to this virus, my understanding is I could be absolutely fine now. I could go to a supermarket tonight, use a trolley, don't clean it. Somebody has used it 10 minutes before me. I could do a simple thing like eating a packet of crisps on the way home from the supermarket, and I could pick the virus up. So it is difficult for the track and trace teams to identify where every case comes from. And certainly when it becomes community transmission, which is what we have now, it is difficult then because, of course, I could just simply stood too close to somebody in the queue at the post office who accidentally breathed at the side of me, and it's this sort of stuff. So it is about, trying to understand the information. But I think we need to wait another couple of weeks to see what the data says. I do think that probably in the next week, the Welsh Government will be looking at bringing forward some further restrictions. And I understand from a statement I saw yesterday, I think on the news or on the media, they are trying to press a 4 nations approach because it is easier when, otherwise, you watch the 6 o'clock news, you get one story from England, you watch the 6:30 news from Wales, and the messages are slightly different, and it is sometimes confusing for people. Thanks.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor James.
Yes, thank you, Presiding Officer. Basically, a lot of what I want to say has already been said, but it's just a few things that I've noticed lately, because we've had the lack of, so like the leadership meetings, and the leaders meetings and everything. A lot of the information I'm getting from now is from the media, in terms of, you mentioned about the Cynon Valley rollout, and last week there was talk of it being rolled out into the entirety of RCT, with the military involved. Well, that was what the papers were reporting, and GTFM and everything. And is there, and I'm conscious of Councillor Jarman raised this issue as well in terms of the COVID test centres. It seems that the information is not necessarily getting down to us from the official channels, if that makes sense. And we get a lot of our information from either media or from community gossip and everything. And is there a way that that could be better tightened up, if that's possible?
Thank you, Councillor.
All I can say is that all members get a members briefing update every day, an email to members. When there are specific changes happening, either myself or the Chief Exec have sent out if it's on a much wider position change. As I mentioned, for example, the First Minister yesterday did say publicly that the Lower Cynnar Valley area is being looked at. That is a submission we put in back a couple of weeks ago because of the significant number of cases. Cases are still relatively high. We have seen a number of deaths in the area. We have had the incidents at the Mount Rush Comprehensive School. So that's why the area was put forward when we were offered to expand a smaller part of the county borough. But what I wouldn't want to do is to update members on something which may not happen. As the First Minister said yesterday, we have put a proposal forward. We're waiting for that to be signed off or formally agreed. I would expect in the next 24 to 48 hours it is. And as soon as the facts are confirmed, we will send out. All I would say is that some of the stuff I've read, like I was shaking my head when you mentioned about all RCT, that was there's never been a suggestion by us. There may have been a suggestion picked up by media outlets, but I'm not going to get into a situation where the council is responding to rumours and speculation by the press. I think we got to get on with the more important things, and we'll update members on the facts as and when we know them.
Thanks for that. But with regards to that, if I can just quickly come in, you mentioned about the Cynnar Valley, and you made that request several weeks ago. Isn't that? Do you think there's an argument to be had that the group leaders, even though you say you don't necessarily want to update the members because it might not happen, is there an argument that the group leaders would at least be informed that that was what was being proposed, so that they would know that if they do start to get questions from their group or even from members of the public, they can say, well, this is what might happen rather than what is happening?
In most cases, Councillor James, we've been trying to do that with leaders and obviously having off-the-record briefings. But what I would say is this is being led by the incident management team. So this isn't a Rhondda Cynon Taf alone submission. This is a combined submission. Just like, for example, we've been supporting our officers supporting Merthyr Tydfil with what they're doing. So when it was first discussed about Merthyr being the pilot area, it was discussed with Bridgend, RCT and Merthyr and the local health board. And that's why now about the expansion. So what I'd say is that this is a development situation. I'm not going to speculate on potentially things that happen. What I would say is that as soon as the facts or any material change happens, then I can show you either through a members update or by myself or the Chief Executive, we will do our best to keep members up to date. But I want to make sure we are not speculating telling members, that we are telling members the true facts about what is and isn't going to happen.
Thank you, Leader. Is Councillor Belzak with us this evening?
I don't believe he's in attendance, Councillor Powderhill.
Righto, thanks, Mr. Hannigan. I'm now going to move on to the reports. Item 7, to receive the statement of accounts for Rhondda Cynon Taf and the Rhondda Cynon Taf Pension Fund. I call on, I think, Mr. Jones from the Wales Audit Office.
Yes, thanks, Presiding Officer. If I could just say, my colleague Carwyn Rees is with me as well, and he actually led the audit and did a lot of the hard work, so a lot of the credit goes to him. But so if there are any hard questions, I may or may not be referring to him. The two reports you've got in front of you are the results of our audit work for the year 1920 for the pension fund and RCT itself. Members will be aware that this is a lot later than normal for obvious reasons, that we couldn't do our normal work in the summer because of COVID-19. I'm not going to go through the reports in much detail because they're very standard reports. There's nothing of great significance to draw to your attention, but I'll just go through a couple of things. I guess the main, if we go on to the first the first report, which is on RCT itself. The main message is that we're proposing an unqualified opinion from the Auditor General tomorrow. And as I say every year, we don't give complete assurance that the accounts are correct, but they're materially correct. And we've given the materiality figures there of 8.3 million in general, but we do also give lower materialities over more sensitive items. The report goes into some detail around the difficulties of remote working and COVID, etc., which I won't go into the difficulties. I think they're probably obvious, but I would like to say a big thank you to the RCT staff, finance staff in particular. It was difficult for everyone, and throughout that time, we've maintained positive relationships, and those relationships have become stronger, if anything. So it's a big thank you to them. It was difficult, but they supported themselves and us through it. So I guess if there is a positive in any of this, is that we will be looking at what efficiencies, if anything, we have got from it. So there are a few things we've learned from remote working that we thought we possibly could do, but because we've had to do it, it's become obvious that we can do it. So there is some good news there. In terms of the opinion itself, I should point out that it is unqualified and it's a true and fair view. But as with all of other local government accounts, because of COVID, there is an emphasis of matter paragraph in the opinion, drawing the reader's attention to RCT's disclosure that there were some valuations received at the year end around properties where the valuer said there were material uncertainties because of COVID. So it would be remiss not to point that out, but it is in all local government accounts, and I say it doesn't affect the opinion. There were some corrected misstatements as a result of the audit, and they're detailed at Appendix 3 for the information of members, but I'm not going to go through those. And there was one misstatement which, as in previous years, we report that the non-material joint committees of RCT are not consolidated into the accounts. And that's probably a quick run through of the councils. In terms of the pension fund, again, an unqualified opinion, the same emphasis of matter paragraph, and very unusually, actually, no corrected misstatements. So that is very, very unusual, and actually points to a very good quality of draft accounts. So it is a very quick run through. I probably would say a bit more normally, but happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, would you like to come in at this point?
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The report, the statement of accounts updated and final, along with associated letters of representation, are also attached to the report contained on the agenda. The accounts do reflect the level of general fund reserves which we had in place at the end of last financial year at 8.709 million, and references plan has been in place to replenish these going forward to the recommended minimum level of 10 million. We also have revenue earmark reserves amounting to 39 million, in addition to specific reserves relating to capital funding for our existing capital programme, for insurance and for treasury management. The timescale for the preparation and the audit of the statements has been amended in close liaison with Audit Wales in light of the pandemic and the consequent reprioritisation of council resources. And it's testimony to the team and wider staff across the council that we've maintained our financial management and control arrangement throughout the period, and can now present as audited and unqualified the accounts now before you. As part of the process, the audit committee considered the draft accounts in July and received an update on the progress of the audit in October, and the committee concluded that there were no issues that would prevent the council from approving the accounts. At that, Presiding Officer, I refer members back to the recommendations at paragraph 2 of the report. Thank you.
Davis. Leader?
Yeah, happy to remove the report and to say that it has been an incredibly difficult year in terms of closing accounts, working through various regulatory bodies as well, in terms of our staff working from home at a time actually when we've had a significant increased workload. Of course, during the first part of the pandemic, a huge number of our finance staff were working on redirecting payments to the thousands of families on free school meals, the millions and millions of pounds of additional grants we were paying out at the same time as doing our normal accounts. The one thing I would just like to comment to our auditors, the Wales Audit Office, say that I think the good, strong relationship we've built over a number of years, certainly in my interviews I have with Wales Audit Office, they always say about the openness and transparency of officers in terms of discussing and talking through any issues or any comments that we get fed back. I think the relationship is built up over many years, and that's why we always get a relatively positive audit report and letter from the Wales Audit Office in terms of where we are. So I just like to pay credit to our finance staff and just pass on our thanks to the auditors. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Norris.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. I won't add much to what's already been said, just my thanks to Mr. Jones and Davis. I just wanted to put on record, really, my thanks to all the finance officers and Audit Wales for all the work they've put in on these accounts. And understandably, as has been said, under very difficult times. It's an excellent report again, and Audit Wales, as has been said, have no material issues to report on either the council or the pension funds. So I'm happy to second the recommendations to A to D.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jarman.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'd like to add my thanks to Mr. Barry Davis and his staff on a job well done under such challenging circumstances. I just have a few questions. I don't know whether to direct them to Mr. Jones or Mr. Davis, but if I recite them, I don't mind which of them answer it. On page 34 at paragraph 15, there's an emphasis of matter paragraph on material evaluation uncertainties relating to the carrying amount of the council's property in one bullet point, and a similar emphasis on the pooled property funds held by the RCT pension funds. I know Mr. Jones did make a brief reference to this. The auditor then declares that his opinion is not modified in respect of these matters. Why then are they mentioned as they should matter, is the question. And at page 43, summary of corrections made itemizes over £1 million as deregulation of infrastructure assets and says the reason for the correction is that the council are contributing toward a Welsh Government building and therefore cannot be recognised as a council asset. I'm wondering what Welsh Government building are we investing £1 million in? And I don't know if it's a one-off investment or if it's cumulative. And finally, and this is particularly to Mr. Jones, will this new way of working lead to a reduction in your audit fees going forward?
Mr. Davis, do you want to pick up on that? Or Mr. Jones?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
I'll probably take questions 1 and 3 and probably ask Barry to confirm the actual building, because I can't remember the name of it. But in terms of the emphasis and matter paragraph, why it's there, etc., as auditors, we need to consider the implications of things like this for our opinion. Nationally, our view is that it's not affecting our true and fair view, but instead of ignoring it, etc., what we're doing is drawing the attention of the reader to it, because it is important. We're saying these are the figures, but be aware, reader, that some of the valuers have cast some doubt on the figures of the property because of COVID. So we're drawing the reader's attention to it rather than trying to bury it, if you like. So we're actually being transparent, as RCT are being transparent by declaring it in their accounts. On the third question around the fee, actually this year, in most cases, and RCT is the same, we've actually overrun the fee this year because of the remote working, etc. It's been difficult getting some of the answers for both the staff, etc. We're not passing on those costs for obvious reasons, because it just wouldn't be equitable and wouldn't be fair at this time. But I did say that there are some things that we're looking at, and some of the work we're looking at is around access to your data and being able to work in the future remotely. And we are hopeful in the future that those efficiencies could be realised. What I will say is we haven't put the audit fee up for probably 6 years or so. So there is a limit to how much we can keep accommodating those efficiencies. That's probably as accurate as an answer as I can give you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
Yes, and the derecognition of the infrastructure asset relates to the investment in the development at Coedili that is being developed in line with the partnership agreement with Welsh Government, and the accounting requirements that go alongside that requires the asset to be actually recorded on the Welsh Government balance sheet, not on the Council's balance sheet. So it's an accounting issue associated with the partnership agreement.
Thank you. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Some very interesting points within the report, and I feel probably better addressed in Finance and Performance Scrutiny and the Audit Committee. But I would like to say thank you to all of the officers, from Mr. Davis right down to those that attend scrutiny committees and take the notes of what goes on there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I don't have anything further to add now.
Thank you. Councillor Geraint Davis, you wish to speak in Gymraeg?
Yn Gymraeg, ie. Yn Gymraeg os gwelwch yn dda. Chi'n gallu clywed fi? No?
Yes, we can hear.
Chi'n gallu clywed, OK. Da iawn. Fel cadeirydd y Pwyllgor Archwilio, mae'n dda i dderbyn adroddiad diamod gan Archwilio Cymru. Mae hwn ddim yn ryfeddod oherwydd rydyn fel Pwyllgor Archwilio wedi derbyn diweddiadau o'r adroddiad yn barod. A siŵr o fod mae rhai pwyntiau sydd wedi codi ynglyn â gwerth adeiladu sydd yn ansicr a pethau eraill bydden nhw'n cael eu codi yn y Pwyllgor Archwilio yn y dyfodol. Mae'r adroddiad yn datgad fod y staff y cyngor wedi ymdopi ar sialens Covid a gweithio yn bellter yn beryg o dda, ac mae'n rhaid diolch a llongyfarch am ei ymdrechion. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Right, Mr. Davis, have you got anything else to add now before I ask members to note the report?
No, nothing else from me, Presiding Officer.
Thank you. Right, members, we've had the call now to note the report. I think it's very favourable. It's also been moved and seconded. So are we all in favour? Councillor Morgan?
Yes, in support from the Labour Group.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman?
Yes, Chair, support.
Thank you. Councillor Powell?
Support.
Councillor James, your group?
Yes, my group of one at the moment. Yes, we support.
Thank you. That's been moved, carried. Item 8, the financing of the 21st Century Schools Capital Programme using prudential borrowing. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. This report provides an update on the financing requirements for a proposed increase to the capacity of YGG Aberdare and follows the award of funding confirmation which has now been received from Welsh Government. The total cost of the project amounts to £4.5 million, against which Welsh Government childcare grant has been secured of £810,000, and 65% of the balance, or £2.399 million, has now been confirmed as 21st Century Schools Band B grant. The Council's required contribution is therefore £1.291 million, the repayment of which, at £52,000 for 40 years, can be funded from revenue savings already made from our school reorganisations. I'd refer members back to the recommendations of paragraph 2.1 and 2.2, namely to approve the prudential borrowing and to incorporate into our capital programme. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Leader?
Yes, happy to support the report. This went to Cabinet last week, I recall. This is a council decision because of the borrowing necessary as part of the arrangement. I think it's a positive news story all round in terms of the finances required for this development and the slight changes that's in the report. So I'm happy on behalf of the Labour Group to support this. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Norris.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Yes, I'm happy to second that for recommendations 2.1 and 2.2. Obviously, the overall amount that is being paid into the fund is more, but we get more services out and the council is paying less towards it than we were initially. So I'm happy to move it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jarman.
Yes, the Plaid Cymru Group support the proposal, Chair, and pleased to see the expansion in Welsh media medication.
Thank you. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chair. I have no problem with supporting an extension for secondary school for Welsh media medication. The only, and I can see the logic behind this, absolutely. But as is part of the 21st century schools for the whole of Rhondda Cynon Taf, perhaps the legal officer could tell me if it could be construed in any way, shape or form as impacting in any way upon the outcoming appeal by RCT to the Court of Appeal over the previous judgment in the High Court about the 21st century school proposals for the Pontypridd area and the Welsh medium education in Pontypridd.
Wilkins come in on this, Councillor Powell, but this is about the report on the funding, not the 21st century schools per se.
The answer is no, Presiding Officer. It doesn't.
It doesn't. So there we are. So Councillor Powell, you've indicated you're happy to support it. Councillor James.
Yep.
Yep. That means you're supporting it. Thank you. Members, that's been moved second and supported and carried. Thank you. Item 9, mid-year Treasury Management Stewardship Report. Mr. Davis. You've got to unmute, Mr. Davis. Thank you.
Apologies. This is a normal mid-year review of Treasury management activity for the first half of the financial year, providing members with an update on borrowing and investment activity and on compliance with our agreed prudential indicators. No fixed or variable rate borrowing was taken during the first half of the year. Our borrowing requirement for the year at £29.3 million will be secured into lending at the appropriate time and in line with available rates, advice from our Treasury advisors and our cash flow position during the year. At paragraph 7, we set out our prudential indicators, which we've operated within during the first half of the year. We have adjusted our authorised limit and operational boundary to reflect the change of timing in respect to the implementation of accounting changes for leases. With regard to investments, we did complete a 25-year loan agreement of up to £5 million to Cynon Taf Housing Group during July, the detail of which was set out in an exempt report which accompanied the delegated decision. And with regard to our limit in this regard, we have previously set an agreed limit of £25 million for sums invested for over 1 year, against which we have actually lent £6.65 million. Mr. Presiding Officer, I'll pause there and refer members back to the recommendations at paragraph 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Leader.
Thanks, Mr. Davis, for presenting the report. No questions on it. Happy to move as has been presented. It is a report we have to have every year in terms of going through the statutory process. So I'm just happy to move.
Thank you. Councillor Norris.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Yes, happy to second that.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman.
Yes, Presiding Officer, happy to support the report. It'll be interesting to see how the Treasury Management Stewardship is affected following the Chancellor's announcement today on those changes that will have a marked effect on the economy throughout the UK, and also whether or not Brexit is invoked on the 31st of December. I understand the Chancellor is a consummate Brexiteer.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. Many of the things contained within this report has come before us in finance and performance. I'm sure Councillor Thomas would maybe wish to comment on points regarding the CPI fluctuations. Again, it's in uncharted waters. It's a very difficult one to call, other than to keep a close eye on it with regards where we may find ourselves with the consumer price index come January 2021 and where we can be at the moment. But there we are. That's the stormy seas which we're going to find out, which we're in. So other than that, accept the report.
And you support it. Thank you. Councillor James.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. Yeah, move to support the report.
Thank you. No other members have indicated. It's been moved, seconded and supported by all leaders. So that's carried. Item 10, the flooding in RCT 2020. Mr. Wheeler is going to present this report, and after the report, can we just, leaders of the groups, ask questions on the report? We've had opportunity to ask questions through scrutiny, through the Cabinet, and through written responses from all members. So, Mr. Wheeler, can you present this report, please?
Thank you, President. I think Christian is going to give us some context first. Christian.
Okay, Mr. Hannigan.
Yeah, thanks, Nigel. I'll be brief. The purpose of the report is to provide that opportunity you've described for Council to consider the information relating to the Sophia flooding which took place earlier this year. I'm sure members will recall the commitment that was made by the Council leader earlier in the year to provide this opportunity. Sections 5 and 6 make clear tonight that this is distinct from that separate piece of work that scrutiny is currently undertaking, and the detail has already been provided through that process and the subsequent scrutiny inquiry sessions that have taken place over the last month or so. And again, scrutiny will consider this matter in December. So at this point, I'll hand back over to my colleague Nigel. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Between yourself and Mr. Morgan, Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Christian. In February 2020, some of the worst storms on record hit Rhondda and Taff, and the flooding that occurred following Storm Ciara and Storm Dennis affected almost 1,500 homes and businesses. Further flooding hit the county borough on the weekend of the 29th of Feb from Storm Jorge, and again from a fourth time in June. Storm Dennis is the 10th storm event to impact the authority since the start of the winter in August 2019, and was the fourth named storm that impacted the authority during the 1920 storm season. The Council received initial warnings relating to Storm Dennis on the 11th, providing 4 days notice of this weather, and 5 further warnings were issued by the Met Office. Demonstrating the unprecedented nature of this weather event, the level of the River Taff in Pontypridd peaked at 5.2 metres, 0.8 metre more than the last recorded record of 4.4 metres in 1979. This severity was mirrored across County Borough. Owen Griffiths is now going to give members a short presentation on the events which took place, which included the measure of the Council's preparation, response, and some context of what we've been doing since the floods. So I'll hand over to Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Mr. Griffiths.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'll just share my screen if I can. Participating chair can share the time. I'm not sure if I can share the second. Oh, here we go. Just get it up a second. I'll just ask if you can confirm that you can see the presentation slide with the RCT logo.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I'll get going. So thank you for the introduction. Just make sure I can get it working. There we go. So Nigel's given a bit of a background up to the presentation, so I'll just jump through and get us started. And some of the information Nigel's already started with on the first slide. So notably, Storm Dennis was the 10th storm event of the year, and we had 4 days worth of warnings prior to it coming in. And what we found for this storm event is that it changed interchangeably from the first warning, from yellow warning through to amber on the 13th, where actually the risk on the amber warning changed to a high impact on the 14th, where it notably changed from an impact risk perspective. And again, even changed during the storm event on the 16th of February, where it changed into a red warning. So it fluctuated through the week and ended up at a quite a substantial, high likelihood, high impact, and as we all know, the impact within the authority. So in terms of the advanced warning, so 4 days notice, we undertook some event preparation and we looked at 300 critical infrastructure sites were inspected, 18 additional work gangs were set into motion in preparation for the event, 2 additional drainage subcontractors with heavy plant equipment, and additional resources within the council contact centre to manage increased call volumes, as well as 500 ready deployable sandbags mounted and ready, with furthers ready to fill as and when required. So in terms of the event, as Nigel mentioned, there was multiple storm events. We had Ciara, Dennis, and Jorge all within February. We're just focusing on Storm Dennis, and notably, we had between 100 and 149 millimetres of rainfall within the borough, that single event. So quite substantial. Moving on to impacts, we had unfortunately 1,070 residential properties flooded and 406 commercial. And that's a total of 1,476 just from Storm Dennis alone. So in terms of the types of flooding, there's 2 specific types we're looking at, which is fluvial or main river and pluvial surface water and ordinary water courses. And most notable is that the pluvial sources had the greatest impact within Rhondda Glentough, and that's most certainly seen with the residential properties, where 690 were affected compared to the main river, which had 380. And just a quick run through of some impacts. I'm sure many of you have seen this photo before. It's Pontypridd Town Centre in flood several hours after the event. And again, the Treforest Industrial Estate, where substantial amounts of water throughout the estate. So a more local issue not related to the main rivers is in the Pentra area in the Rhondda Fawr, where 159 residential properties were internally flooded, as shown on the plan. And the source of the flooding originated from the Culvert Inlet. There's a stock photo on the left, and the photo immediately after the event, where debris and detritus had come down and damaged and overcapacitated the inlet. That resulted in overland flows through the estates and down to the urban centre. So we had a quick look up into the upper catchment, and what we found, some recent tree felling and a series of debris and detritus throughout the upper catchment that may have impacted onto the Culvert Inlet in the lower section. So that's the route shown as arrows on the plan, and unfortunately the condition of the streets during the event or immediately after the event, we can see substantial amounts of silt and around ½ a metre worth of depth just based on the level of silt on the cars. Unfortunately, that's not where the story ended in Pentra, and 3 days after the primary event, a second flooding event occurred where a culvert manhole further down the system was found to be fully obstructed, and that's a 900 millimetre diameter culvert barrel full of debris and detritus that unfortunately re-flooded many of the properties in both Pleasant Street and Lewis Street. So in terms of response, what we've done is just look at very briefly a short, medium and long term in terms of what we've done. So we've looked at over 1,000 or responded to 1,000 reports of flooding, brought in several additional subcontractors, heavy plants such as recyclers and cameras, mobilised resources from neighbouring authorities, undertook emergency repairs on collapsed infrastructure, and mobilised 8 high-capacity pump units and requested 2 additional units from colleagues in Natural Resources Wales. We had a great outreach from the general community. Over 150 volunteers stepped forward that supported the management of 4 donation and distribution centres. 4 rest centres were set up during the night, and part of the volunteer support allowed 910 household food parcels to be delivered to those properties most at risk or most at need. Medium term, we looked at, or looking at in fairness, the investigation and understanding of the flooding, and what we've identified is 28 unique sub-investigation areas, of which 19 are likely to be published under Section 19 of the Flood and Water Management Act. We've also continued an emergency response and recovery efforts, where over 1,000 tonnes of material have been moved from culverted ordinary watercourses. 50 kilometres of ordinary watercourse infrastructure is planned to be completed in terms of internal surveys, and accelerated the capital programme, estimated at 6.7 million over 47 schemes. We've also prepared for the winter, looking at advanced deployments of pumping units, updated our pre-event investigations, and stockpiled sandbags and other measures such as flood sacks. In terms of long-term flood risk, long-term measures rather, this is where we're looking at what we can learn from the event to better prepare for the next ones. And what we've looked at is a comparison of the national mapping against the actual flooding that we received during Storm Dennis. And very simply put, there's a strong correlation, and that's given us a bit more confidence on the recent publication. So in October, some new maps were published by Natural Resources Wales, and they underpin what's called the Communities at Risk Register. So what's shown on the screen is a very simplified run through of the communities at risk, and red being the highest risk, and the red dots again and green dots being the locations of those properties and businesses affected during Storm Dennis. So the key here is the similarities in very simple terms. From a pluvial perspective, those reds match up very well, and there's very little in terms of outliers, so red dots in green locations. And most notable is that Rhondda Cynon Taf have 25 of the highest communities at risk in Wales, and that's 20% of the top 111, for some perspective. We've taken that on a step further. We've created what we've called 12 strategic flood risk assessment boundaries, so broken the authority up into sub areas for better coordination of the risk of flooding. We've looked at land ownership, where Natural Resources Wales own around 30% of the land through forestries and estates. And what we've decided to do is pilot a programme business case in the pilot area called the Upper Rhondda Strategic Flood Risk Area, or Flood Risk Assessment Zone, as highlighted yellow. And the purpose of this is to understand the wider terms of flood risk in this location and prepare a programme business case to manage and provide opportunities to reduce those risks in those areas. So we've picked the Upper Rhondda primarily because of the communities at risk area, and that is, we've got the communities of Rhondda ranked 1 in Wales, communities of Treorchy ranked 3 in Wales, and the communities of Treorbert ranked 6. So that was taken as the highest risk and a suitable location to undertake the pilot. A further pilot study we looked into is to better inform ourselves of the toolbox of options we have to manage flood risk. And this is specific to property flood resilience, or property level protection as it was previously termed. And this pilot study again focuses on the Upper Rhondda because of the types of flood risk associated and the high risk. And what we're looking at is to better understand the best practice, the general guidelines, but key risks and limitations to the use of PFR measures. So how can we better use it and better understand the product to use it as part of a toolbox solution? So that study's ongoing at present. And just for a little bit of reference, and again, I won't go into detail, there's 2 types of property flood resilience measures. We've got resistance measures and resilience measures. And again, I won't go into the detail of in each individual one, but just to know effectively, there's a range of options available for PFR. It's not just a one-shoe-fits-all type situation. You've got to consider the property and identify the key input areas and come up with a solution per property effectively. So 6 steps to flood resilience. This is a very simplified overview. And this is what we've really pulled out of the study so far based on the drafts. There's 6 steps to successful delivery. And that's understanding the risk from the national flood risk perspective, understanding the property and what allows that water to enter into those structures, but also then the procurement and management. And as part of this process, we've signed up to the Environment Agency PFR framework to enable a quicker transition when we identify these schemes going forward. So in terms of going forward, I won't go into detail at this point. It's suffice to say, over the next 4 years, we've identified 50 projects estimated at 12.7 million. And the key on this is that as we identify more investigation areas and asset surveys, we are likely to increase that list. Because as we identify and understand what the risks and impacts are, we're going to include those and prioritise them as needed. So this was just a very little run through of one of the schemes that's ongoing at the moment, valued at £300,000 for the benefit of 227 receptors up in Pentra. So that's the Pentra Road Inlet, and that's to provide resilience to the influx of debris and detritus that may impact in that location. So that's ongoing at the moment and due for completion hopefully before the winter break. So 1 or 2 last items, and that's just a reference that from a structures perspective, there's 350 structures have been inspected, and unfortunately approximately £50 million worth of damages have been identified at a range of locations. Again, I won't go into detail on that. And the last slides really just talk about the tips, maintenance and the issues experienced during Storm Dennis. As many are aware, we've got a range of tips within the authority. As a result of Storm Dennis, we had 34 call-outs of movements or potential issues, which then we allowed ourselves to move ourselves. We prioritised and programmed a review of the high-risk tips all 43 of them, and followed up with the A's and B's to ensure we understand the impact the Storm Dennis has caused on our tips. And the images coming up are just a snapshot really of some of the risks and damage that's occurred. The last item is the Tylerstown landslip. As you're well aware, I've probably seen this image several times before. There's 60,000 tonnes of material mobilised to the valley floor, which is the main river. And there's 2 phases of work, a short-term intervention underway at the moment, estimated at £2.5 million, which is to remove the 60,000 tonnes of material from the river flow, and a further investment from a medium-term perspective of around £10 million plus to stabilise the upper tip and to fully reinstate the walking and cycling routes in the community. So I hope that was of use, and yeah, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Griffiths. Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Leader? Leader?
I think the leader might be experiencing some connection issues, Presiding Officer.
Okay, Deputy Leader?
I don't want to add anything to the presentation at this stage, Presiding Officer. If you want to take comments from the other group leaders, if the leader has rejoined us, he can come in. If not, I reserve my right to add anything at the end, but you can go to the other group leaders first.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman?
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I've just got 1 or 2. I happen to be on overview and scrutiny, and I was at the scrutiny inquiry session earlier in November, so I've seen the presentations that were presented here this evening. Unfortunately, that session wasn't recorded, so it didn't capture the representation made by either ward members at the time or the committee. So this report, Presiding Officer, at 1.3 says, members are reminded that this report is distinctly separate from the current work of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Yet the report is peppered with analysis and presumptions and predictions as to what has already been identified as key areas in that work. I find that a little disingenuous because, of course, the members of that scrutiny inquiry session have yet not been privy to the minutes of that meeting to test their veracity and correctness. So it can't be both. If this is about being distinctly separate from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, then those presumptions made on behalf of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee can't be relied on at this stage because they haven't stood the test of checks and balances. I would concede for other members who didn't have opportunities, like myself, at that session to make their remarks. But the message is clear to me. You can't be having it both ways. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee were told that the Natural Resources Wales report was a statutory document. We now know it wasn't, and it is in this report acknowledged that it wasn't a statutory report. I rest there, Presiding Officer, for other colleagues to have the opportunity to have their say.
Thank you, Councillor Jarman. Councillor Morgan, you're back with us?
Yeah, sorry, Presiding Officer. I just got to the end of the presentation. I got kicked out then. If I can thank Mr. Griffiths for presenting the report and the slides. Just to say that we will have further information coming back from scrutiny. There are also further lessons learnt meetings planned with officers. And as I previously said, there will be a report coming before Cabinet in December. It'll be quite a substantial report with a whole series of recommendations on the way that we prepare for storms of such magnitude in the future, as things are clearly with climate change going in this direction. We will need to look at a programme of works. We are certainly putting a substantial number of bids forward to the Welsh Government. A number of bids have been prepared for next year as well, and there's discussions ongoing both at an officer level, and I certainly have had conversations with ministers in recent weeks on this. So I think that just the scale and the size of the event in terms of not just the number of homes and businesses that are affected, but the individual flood events. You've seen from the one table it was presented around 50 schemes being complete on the ground where work is underway or they're in the design stage. But I'm sure that number will more than double in the next 12 months in terms of more locations as the further investigations report back. We have the statutory reports, which will also help inform us going forward in terms of where we will have to intervene. And clearly, as I've already said, the council will need to make commitment in terms of additional resources and potentially increasing staff resources as well in terms of being more prepared for this. But I would just like to put on record again my thanks to all the staff, those in the immediate response to Storm Dennis and those in the days and weeks, in particular our environmental health staff and health staff that went door to door around communities, speaking to residents, providing support, assistance and guidance, working with partners like Citizens Advice Bureau, and staff immediately then swapped from the flood work straight in then into the pandemic. But as I would say, today is just further update to members really, and we will be seeing now all those responses that members have sent in their own individual experiences. I know a number are being submitted in already. That with the scrutiny comments and findings from the various partners who have attended the meetings will all help inform the cabinet report, which will go before us then in just a few weeks' time. So thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I've read this report from the flooding in Rhondda and Taff, and I listened to Mr. Griffiths' observations and comments on where the council is at the November the 9th, I think it was, meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee inquiry, which and now having read this, and let's be perfectly honest, the staff on the day that were engaged were absolutely brilliant. They were the business. They did as much as they possibly could, and in the days after. But the whole object of the exercise, as I see it, is to see where the council actually could have improved and done better, and where it didn't do what it should have done at all. And the Overview and Scrutiny inquiry, where we were allowed 5 minutes to try and sum up, I'm still dealing with issues from the flooding. I had to deal with a lady who was charged by the authority, but I believe now has been given a wheelie bin that was washed away in the flood on the 16th of February. There is still houses in my ward which are uninhabited because of the renovation work that's going on. And again, that was impacted with COVID. I'm not really interested in pointing a finger and saying who's to blame. That is that, and I don't think any of us are. I think what we want to see, and this is why I'll be supporting the amendment, sorry, not the amendment, but the motion later and not the amendment, is to get an independent inquiry. Because when you read the report which we have in front of us, background, 4.4, red, rain, 16th of the 2nd, 2020 at 6:10. Zion Street was under 6 foot of water at 6:10. It was under 6 foot of water, 5:10. We have no indication of how that impacted, or how the river, the levels there were impacted upon other areas further upstream. RCT are not going to actually be able to do the job that's required to actually see what the causes of this flooding in a lot of our area from the river, the culverts, etc. Well, that is an RCT, National Resources Wales issue. But we had 5 minutes in the Overview and Scrutiny, or lack of overview and lack of scrutiny inquiry, where some of the members were treated absolutely disgracefully.
Point of order, Mr. Presiding Officer. Point of order. Point of order. Every member was given an opportunity to put in right in. So point of order.
What number?
Point of order.
If you shout point of order, you have to say what number and how it's been broken.
Councillor James, Councillor Adams. I don't want to go there. Councillor Powell,
Thank you very much, Chair.
Your comment to this report. You had an opportunity in overview and scrutiny. You had a, wait a minute. Councillor Powell, wait a minute. You had an opportunity in overview and scrutiny. You had an opportunity in cabinet. You've had an opportunity to write your response and put everything you wish to say in that letter. Now, tonight is about, we've received a report. I don't want to go through everything. I'm not going to have another 3 hours like we had in overview and scrutiny. You've made your point. Now, thank you. I understand that, but we're not going to go down that route again.
Chair, can I finish my 5 minutes, please?
You're just about, we're out to your 5 minutes, so make it quick, please.
I was interrupted, so I'm sure that's going to be it.
I haven't counted that. Finish quickly, please.
If you take 415 of the report, the bullet points, I would love to know who put these together. 150 plus volunteers worked alongside the authority. On one day in Treforest, I had 103 volunteers out, and that's not including the ones out in other areas, just in Treforest, in the tin plate works. That was 103. So the 150, I don't know where that comes from. The other issues, 910 households, 4 distribution centres, they weren't established by RCT, or were they? Because the one in my ward, which serviced Anisabel, Kilfynydd, Town Ward, Trafton Ward, Treforest Ward, Hopkinstown, Treaford, Taftswell, Nantgarw, yeah? That was out of Trafton Community Centre. Now, I don't see what the other 3, you know, they weren't set up by the authority. Nobody did any of this, as I can see it. And the point I'm making to you, Mr.
You've taken credit for things that happened in my ward, in other councillors' wards. I don't understand where you're going with this, but...
I'm pointing out that this is what occurred in other wards in support of other members, and yourself, you know full well what we were doing. We were even up in Pentra. But this is 150 volunteers. Who were they? Who actually compiled this, and where did these figures come from?
Right, you've made your question. You've made your point. We'll find out where that...
The point, this is why I'm going through it. So we're talking about lessons learned, but you're asking me to agree to a report when I look at it and I have this opportunity to discuss it in this meeting, something which is very important, which probably needs more than 5 minutes, but you want to curtail the actual debate.
I am curtailing it because you've had the ability to write, to visit scrutiny, to visit cabinet. Now, tonight, we've received a report. We're not going down
7 other members who had 5 minutes each, so we're talking 40 minutes.
Councillor James.
Oh, thank you, Presiding Officer. And I'd just like to thank Owen for this presentation. I thought it was very informative. I wouldn't like to think what he's thinking of the meeting at the moment. But with regards to what was highlighted in the report, I know when Owen mentioned about the sort of the medium-term investigations, you know, there's the short-term, there's the medium-term and the long-term. Now, the medium-term investigations also centered upon where the flooding happened rather than the wider county borough. I suppose that's also guided by the flood maps that have just been produced. So one of the questions I have is, to what extent does the council feel the need to explore further afield? Because as Owen knows, like there's flooding issues sort of in my ward, you know, obviously not to the extent of what happened elsewhere, but I don't think anyone could have predicted what happened in sort of Pentra, in Ponty and Treforest and everything. So what's the council doing to try and look at issues, for example, you know, like the River Clean, you know, in the other areas, but also in terms of sort of like the maintenance of the culverts and the inspections, do you feel that that was something that might have been lacking prior? Because I know some of the stuff in my ward, it's a constant thing to try and get the council to come out to clear the culverts, to clear the block drains and everything. And then the final question is touched upon about the majority of culverts in the county borough are on private land or under private residential property. Obviously, that brings into riparian rights and the responsibility of the landowner to undertake their own maintenance. What's the council's view on that in trying to link up with NRW or to try and use its sort of like own initiative for want of a better word, to try and publicise that and to try and get residents to say, again, I can only speak about issues in my ward as well, in terms of like acknowledging, you know, with residents, you know, there is an issue here with, the culvert on your farmland, for example, that needs to be looked at. What's the council doing to try and tackle that issue then as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Mr. Wheeler, do you or Mr. Griffiths want to come back on any of these points raised earlier?
I'll come in, Presiding Officer. On the issue, Councillor James, we would prioritise the worst first, the ones with the biggest issue. So we will be looking at all issues, but obviously we'll go to the worst first. With regard to your comment about council not cleaning culverts, we do inspect all our culverts on a regular basis and we clean them as necessary when we do it, and all of them are inspected on different times and different time scales. It could be a month, it could be a week. It's dependent on where it is, what it is. With regard to the riparian owners and private land, obviously it is down to the landowner to deal with that, but obviously we got powers to actually go in and do it if we needed to and charge them. We do try and get owners to do it, but it is difficult, and some do work which is not up to the standard we would require. And in one instance in the floods recently, a private landowner had done work on a culvert and he caused the flood further down the line because of the work he's done, and we are tackling that. So we do tackle it, but obviously with the number of culverts we do have in Rhondda Cynon Taf, we have to prioritise them.
Oh, thank you. Presiding Officer, if I can just quickly come back in, just to clarify my statement, I wasn't necessarily saying that the council wasn't clearing the culverts. It was just to highlight issues previously in my ward.
Thank you, Councillor James. Leader, would you like to come back in at this point?
Yeah, just want to say, I understand members are saying they want to have obviously more input into this. Just to say that we had a 3 hours, 15-minute scrutiny meeting, a subgroup recently, the workshop. I understand there's a further scrutiny meeting to be held, and I say there's a cabinet meeting then in December. What I have to say is today's report is just to update members in terms of the progress and the latest situation, as was mentioned by Owen Griffiths in his presentation. Just want to make the point that some of the points that members have raised, I believe, referring to the report, we are talking about directly things involved with the council. So, for example, rest centres or evacuation centres, which were established by the local authority, not necessarily local groups. So there's a number of much smaller projects which are undertaken by volunteers, etc. But we are talking about what actions as well we took. In terms of the volunteers, clearly not every volunteer group or numbers would have been captured because there was a whole raft of various groups established. But this is where volunteers directly contacted the council and were working with our staff supporting us. I know at the time when on that particular Sunday in particular into the Monday, we drafted in every contractor and we were happy to take every volunteer who was prepared to assist. But today is just a kind of stock take position of where we are. The report is for noting. It says that it's for also noting that there will be a cabinet report. What I would also suggest is that the cabinet report, I think, will probably need a meeting of its own. I think there will be a substantial report with a lot of recommendations that both cabinet members will want to discuss, and I'm sure members of council will want to address as well. So if we have a separate cabinet meeting for this in December, then I'm sure members can have more input even again there. But as I say, we've had the written responses as well of those local kind of experiences of members and the community. And all of this is feeding into what will be a substantial report coming to Cabinet in December. Thanks.
Thank you, Leader. And I agree totally with what you're saying, that members will have the opportunity in the further scrutiny meeting, in the Cabinet meeting, and to continue putting their written responses in. So I'm going to take the vote on this now to note the report. There's a time and a place, and I'm not going to go back through what we went through tonight.
Chair.
Councillor Morgan, I can see that you've got your hands raised, as are others. But if you're just going to say what you said in the scrutiny, then I'm not going to take it, because I think there's a better mechanism to do it than tonight.
Please don't insult my intelligence, presiding officer. I want to just make comments on the report in front of us.
That's fine. Thank you, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you. Just a few questions, please, because as the presiding officer said, I have heard this, although I didn't get a chance to scrutinise or ask questions in overview with scrutiny. But on section 4.3c, section 19 responsibilities, could you describe the next stages in the section 19 reporting process, please, for my information? 4.13 mentions liaison with residents. Could you just explain how that has been carried out? 4.18, do we have a cost attached to external consultants that have been used so far in the process? 4.21, the 47 flood alleviation schemes. Would it be possible to provide members with a breakdown of the location of those, please? Not necessarily tonight, and at your convenience. And 7.5, where we talk about the section 19 report and going to cabinet, do we have a time scale rather than at a later date? That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. And this goes for every other councillor, unless your question is directly to this report, then please put it in writing. Councillor Rhys-Owen, is it directly to this report?
Yes, presiding officer, it's to Mr. Griffiths regarding his presentation, if I could.
Thank you.
Mr. Griffiths, can I just ask, you talked about measures, protection measures for people's homes. And bearing in mind, we've had some properties within the Pentre ward who've been flooded 4 times this year. Can I just ask, has that process begun to identify what those individual properties need? And following on from that, please, we had a number of houses, as you know, flooded in the June flash floods in different streets to some same houses, but that seemed broader actually in the bottom streets of Pentre and the main road actually. Will those houses be included in those for the protection measures, please? Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cox, again on the presentation and report, please.
Yeah, diolch for allowing me to raise a couple of questions. My first is a question regarding whether it is suitable to accept a report that notes the salient points made by the Natural Resources Wales response, which many of us will have great difficulties with. In that, they say that the review found that our operations at the site above the village of Pentre were in keeping with standards of good forestry practice, and that these operations were not likely to have been the primary cause of the flooding in Pentre. My difficulty is that I don't agree with them. I think if you pay your consultant to find out the answer that you want, you will get the answer that you want. And that is what NRW did there. Could I also ask the leader to confirm that there's nothing in the existing scrutiny process or the future scrutiny process that has halted or delayed any works?
Thank you, Councillor. And finally, Councillor Vaughan, on this report, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to know if we are still able to submit written responses, since that has been brought up today. And I would also like to reinforce the point made by Councillor Jarman regarding 6.6 and to ask, I can't accept that this is the summation of the common themes. And also, are we confident it wasn't just a better understanding of the council emergency response procedures, it was questioning the emergency response procedures themselves? And I think in terms of scrutiny, are we going to be given more than 5 minutes in the future? I don't think it was adequate, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, in terms of time. Every ward could have taken those 3 hours easily. So I do have questions here about whether we can actually have proper scrutiny on this and proper input, because to date, I don't feel I've had that, and I don't feel I've been able to represent my constituents adequately. And I'd like to make that point here, because I don't think there's been an opportunity otherwise for me to state that.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you want to come back on this, Mr. Wheeler, or written responses?
Can I just comment?
I think,
if I could.
Sorry, Leader.
I'm just going to comment. We would welcome written responses, and I think we've said previously that up to individual members to write in, because it was explicitly said in the scrutiny subgroup meeting, that working group, that if members want to write in with any local experiences in terms of what happened on the day, the response, any feedback from residents, we would welcome that. I know to date that we've had a number in, but as I say, we are looking to bring a report forward in December. So the sooner those responses are sent in, if you haven't yet, that is part of your ability then to represent your residents, Councillor Vaca. But what I would say is that there's been, I think, 2 scrutiny meetings so far, one being the working group. There's a further scrutiny meeting planned. Today is just an update and a stock take of where we are for noting, and just to say that we will be bringing a further report, not just to Cabinet, in terms of our recommendations and things we need to change, but also it does say in the report that the statutory reports on the individual flood incidents will also come back to Council for further discussion. So this isn't something that's going to be put to bed before Christmas at a Cabinet meeting. This is something that we're going to need to have a series of meetings on over the next 6 months as we further evaluate and move forward with these schemes.
Thank you.
Just to add, Presiding Officer, in terms of the timescales, we did set in the deadline originally to receive those submissions, when we have received a number of submissions, but that was obviously in terms of the report, completing the report, but that report writing is still ongoing. So there is still that opportunity. I'm sure Councillor Adams would be happy to accept that process going forward. And in terms of the future engagement of members in that process, obviously that can be discussed further by the Overview and Scrutiny when they next consider they work on this matter at their meeting in the next I believe 2 weeks or so.
Thank you, Mr. Hannan.
Presiding Officer, on the questions, I think I'll give written responses. I didn't quite catch one or two of them, so if they captured in the minutes, I can respond directly. I've got most of them. There was 1 or 2 I didn't quite catch.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler.
For clarity, Mr. Presiding Officer, will the written responses be included in a public document, or will it be something that will be kept under lock and key?
It will be in a public document, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Hannigan. Thank you, Councillor Powell. Councillor Adams.
Reiterate what the leader said. We did ask 3 times, and it's made quite clear in that meeting, on 3 separate occasions, the written submissions can be available by last Friday. The leader said, the report is still being written. We're quite happy to take written responses. I know the Plaid Cymru group have written a full response on their behalf. Again, other officers, again, other members, they want to do that. They had 5 minutes because we had 26 speakers that night who could have contributed. 26. If I give everybody the opportunity to speak half an hour or 3 hours, then basically the problem would have happened, would have been there until the following night. So basically, so I'm going to what the leader is saying. What the leader is saying is quite agree. We'll accept written responses and basically until basically the report is finished. So basically, as soon as I get them in, as you said, the better.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jarman, you want to...
Yeah, just so that I'm clear in my mind, the chairs of Overview and Scrutiny has said that we put in a full summary of our concerns in any event. But I wondered if I could be told who authorised and signed off without any future reference back to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, the emerging themes. Surely those emerging themes are for Overview and Scrutiny to identify and publish.
I'm sure you'll put that in writing to get your response, Councillor Jarman. Deputy Leader, do you want to...
Sure. Presiding Officer, with every respect, somebody made a decision to publish those emerging themes without any reference back to the committee. I'd like to know who did it, or if not named, was it an officer, or was it the chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, or was it a combination of both?
Mr. Hannigan?
Presiding Officer, I'm happy to confirm that it was a combination of both, and the specific action that the summary of those meetings was going to form part of the council report was referenced within the meeting, and it's also been referenced in queries that members have raised around the approach in terms of reporting those comments of meetings at this council meeting, which have been raised subsequently. That approach has been made clear.
Thank you. Councillor Yeo.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. I'd like to move progress, Presiding Officer. I think there's some fun and games going on here. You've given them enough leeway. They've exceeded. Move progress so that we can move on to note the subject. Thank you.
I am moving progress now. The report is there to be noted. That's what it is. If you agree with it, fine. If you don't, make your point known. So on behalf of the Labour group, do you agree to note the report? Councillor Webber?
Yeah, I'm happy to note the report, Presiding Officer. This is going to be a long process. Those of us who've had our wards flooded many times know the heartache and devastation it causes to residents throughout the whole of the county borough. It's the start of a process, and hopefully by the end of that process, I don't know that all the answers will be there, but hopefully most of them will, because we cannot contend with nature and climate change in its present format. We can mitigate, but we can't eliminate.
Councillor Jarman?
Well, we can note it. I don't agree with it, but we can note it.
That's what I'm asking. Thank you. Councillor Powell?
I note that it's the tip of the iceberg.
Thank you. Councillor James?
Yep, note the report.
The report has been noted. Now we move on to item 11, the notice of motion. Councillor Vaughan?
Presiding Officer, I'd like to raise a point of order, please.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. Councillor Joel James would be delighted to know. I know the number.
Oh, very good.
Presiding Officer, I raise on a point of order. Part 4 Rules of Debate 12.6 Amendments to Motion, brackets A, allows at small Roman 3 to leave out words and insert or add others as long as the effect is not to negate the sense and purpose of the motion. The sense and purpose of the motion is lost in the last paragraph of the proposed amendment. The motion calls on the Leader of the Council to write to the First Minister to call for an independent inquiry, not to write to the First Minister outlining the progress made by the Council, etc. Any fair-minded person would have to agree that it would be an abuse to allow the amendment to stand on the basis of it being improper. It should fall, and I am formally asking for it to be withdrawn. I would respectfully ask that the Monitoring Officer and Chief Executive put on the record today their advice on this matter. But I have had different advice from my legal advisor.
Mr. Hannigan?
Nothing further to add than they say that the motion was accepted as a correct and proper amendment and was thus tabled before council this evening. Presiding Officer.
Thank you. Mr. Wilkins, have you anything to add?
Just to add, I was consulted on the decision of the Service Director. I supported his rationale, and I have provided further responses to Councillor Jarman's queries on this via email. As I say, I supported the validity of the amendment.
Thank you. On that basis, the notice of motion will go ahead.
Presiding Officer, it's up now to the mover of the motion and their seconder to determine whether they would withdraw that amendment on the basis of the representation I've made.
The mover of the motion is Councillor Buchan. Are you asking Councillor Buchan to withdraw her motion?
The mover of the amendment.
Right, you didn't say
It is
that.
up to the mover of the amendment to consider withdrawing the motion with the consent of the seconder.
Thank you. I will ask the amendment, Councillor Adams.
No, it stands.
Thank you. It stands. Councillor Buchan, would you like to move your notice of motion, please?
Yes, I'll start my 5 minutes now.
Yn Gymraeg o Saesneg?
Saesneg, so I'll start now. Everyone here today, irrespective of political allegiances, understands the devastation caused by the floods this year. Many of you, like myself, were at the heart of recovery efforts and are still supporting residents and businesses affected and therefore know of the ongoing impact and trauma. Today's motion is about supporting those affected and who are at risk of future flooding. It is a request for justice so that they receive the answers they deserve as to what's happened and why through an independent inquiry. It reads as follows. Unprecedented, devastating, traumatizing. Those are the three most often used words in relation to the floods that hit so many communities across RCT this year. And we weren't the only communities affected, with similar scenes being seen across Wales. Council notes the significant costs related with the recovery and that it has been estimated that at least 500 million more is needed in the next decade if Wales is to avoid significant flooding. Council further notes that as a result of climate change, flooding is far more likely to occur in the future. Council acknowledges the many questions our residents have relating to the floods remain unanswered 9 months on, with some suffering further floods as recently as August. Every time there is now heavy rainfall, people are naturally anxious. Council believes that though a number of reports have either been published or are pending, it is clear that they are limited in scope and are conducted by the organisations themselves rather than by external independent agencies. Neither do they address the impact on the mental and physical health of residents, nor the lasting economic and social impact. Council supports the thousands of residents that signed a recent Senedd petition that there must now be an independent inquiry into the floods to bring together all the reports, scrutinise them, and bring together the evidence and experiences of residents and businesses. It is the only way that we can secure the answers and justice for the residents and businesses affected. Council therefore requests that the Leader of the Council write to the First Minister of Wales to call for an independent inquiry, stating that the Council will participate openly and transparently in such a process so that lessons can be learned for the future and investment secured for flood prevention measures. The Council Leader has previously rejected calls for an independent inquiry, stating that an inquiry would unnecessarily repeat the same process as the Section 19 report and the NRW report. But there are limitations to these reports, and the benefits of an independent inquiry would allow us to hear directly from affected residents and businesses, considering their evidence as well as that of every organisation which has a responsibility for flood prevention and management, which includes local authorities, Welsh Government, NRW and Dŵr Cymru. Only an independent inquiry can bring all of this evidence together and determine if anything could have been done differently. Crucially, an independent inquiry would also help determine what investment is needed in flood prevention measures as a response to climate change. Both NRW and Welsh Government have been clear that flooding will be more frequent and is something that we will need to adapt to. This is very likely not going to be an unprecedented, exceptional, or a once-in-a-generation event. So how are we preparing for this? The request is simple. The motion asks the Leader of the Council to write to the First Minister, stating our support as a Council for an independent inquiry, and also that the Council will participate openly and transparently in such a process so that everyone, including ourselves, can learn lessons. This is not my request. It's not a request from the Plaid Cymru group. It is a request from the people who experienced floods, and I'd like to close with a quote from one of the victims who support an independent inquiry. If I ever had to go through this again, well, I don't think I could. I'd be in a psychiatric hospital. They need to protect us before they take more of us and more from us than they already have. We can't survive another instance like this. Please support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Griffiths.
Yes, thank you. I would like to second this notice of motion and explain why I want to support the call for an inquiry. Storm Dennis was not within our control for obvious reasons. The way the water flowed down the mountains, causing misery to people and businesses, damaging topography and infrastructure, was not within the authority's control. I do know how hard everybody in this authority worked, staff, councillors, community groups and citizens, and I applaud and thank every one of them. The call for an inquiry is not a blame game for the sake of political point scoring. That is not why we want an inquiry. I am worried about the children, about our children and about our grandchildren who will want to live in these valleys in the future. We know that they will face more climate-induced disasters and misery, and it is highly likely that Storm Dennis was the first of many, and we can expect more flooding in the future. What is within our control, and in my view is also our responsibility to the citizens of Rhondda Cynon Taf, is doing everything possible to fully analyse and understand how we can make our communities more robust against future storms and floods. Nearly half of the flooded properties and businesses were flooded by pluvial water, and measures to counter this are within our control. To reduce flooding in future, we need to understand all the details of what happened during Storm Dennis, what worked well and what needs improving. Some of the areas that may need attention have been shared in previous meetings. Lack of knowledge on the ground amongst community members and councillors about the emergency planning protocols, contingency planning for residents when the planned emergency rest centres were untenable for many residents of flooded areas. And we also know that timely communication with us as councillors and with the general public was frustrating and at times lacking. Unfortunately, our allotted 5 minutes opportunity to share councillors' experiences on behalf of their wards was woefully inadequate and could not lead to the level of learning that we need to do looking into what happened. So to do this, I feel we need to listen to everyone who played a part and who were impacted. This should not be a conversation only for our ears. It should inform all stakeholders in RCT and beyond, and influence future planning across all the public and private sector. This cannot happen without a comprehensive inquiry. I have no doubt that councillors and officers and partner agencies operate with the best of intentions in producing the Section 19 reports. But our hands are tied to the statutory requirements and the narrow focus of their scope. They are not designed nor intended to consider creative, all-inclusive, holistic solutions to whatever weaknesses or challenges present that we really need to address. The best way to involve partners who are currently outside the scope of current investigations is to hold an inquiry. Then we can address and hear the perspective of people from the communities themselves and agencies like health authorities and the voluntary sector who are so crucial in addressing the human, physical and emotional health impact on children and adults that Councillor Vychan has talked of. As the leading risk management authority, I would like to see this council unite to call for an inquiry and become the advocates that our population are asking us to be. Our duty is to work for the health and well-being of the people of RCT, and if this requires going above and beyond the current statutory obligations, then that is what we should do, because that is the right thing to do. People deserve to be seen and heard, and to understand how all the civic bodies involved in all of our daily lives will rise to the challenge of climate change. They deserve to know what lessons have come from this experience, and they deserve to know how we as an authority and how our partner agencies will seek to minimise the risk, the heartache and cost of future flooding and other climate-related catastrophes. I believe a public inquiry is a healthy and positive way to do this. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Members, you'll have received the notification of the amendment. I now ask Councillor Adams to move the amendment to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Officer. I've tabled this amendment based on a number of factors that I believe the original notice of motion has not sufficiently accounted for. After suffering such devastation earlier this year, our residents want action taken now to mitigate the risk of their homes and business being impacted on the future. A number of thorough investigations have already been completed and some significant reporting is already underway. And these have been conducted by the relevant flood risk management authorities. Whilst we of course acknowledge the signatories of the petition, a public inquiry will research and lengthen what is already a very complex process with significant amounts spent on an exercise that may not provide the answers. This public inquiry could take any up to 18 months to deliver its findings, which we feel is not acceptable to the residents whom we serve. We therefore move this amendment in recognition of the huge amount of work that has already been undertaken in addressing these issues. I so move.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconder, please.
I second that.
Do you want to add anything, Councillor Bevan?
Sorry, not at this moment in time, Presiding Chair.
Thank you. Members, Councillor Powell. You're muted, Councillor Powell.
I did unmute and then somebody muted me. I'll be speaking against this notice of the amendment to the motion because, as has been stated by the mover and seconder of the earlier motion, it really isn't about having political brickbats being thrown against people here. It's to ascertain what occurred, when it occurred, and where did it occur. Now, I know there are other people having other reports, and we've just had a debate on what RCT is looking at. I recently travelled through Aberfan, and there is a large amount of work being carried out in the floodplains in Aberfan, which is not in RCT, but is in another authority. They are put in bunds alongside the rivers, which is going to actually then increase the flow or the height of the river. But what it's also going to do is actually cover over large areas of land, which would have normally been a sponge and soaked up the water and then released it gradually. Now we're not getting it. If you had a look at the National Resources Wales's website on the 16th of February this year, you would have seen the river levels and how they actually measured them as they were coming down. In Abercynon, in the River Cynon, that was at 3 meters, 4.2 meters thereabouts in Pontypridd. Now, it didn't gain that volume of water in that short space of time. That was an increase in water coming down the tap from Merthyr as well, all flowing into a small constricted area, which we are now getting more and more water coming into. We've seen what happened in the Cynon with Tafounder Fields getting built over. And what RCT are looking to do, and what this amendment to the motion will do, will negate this authority and the ability to actually look at all of these areas that have been contributing towards the problems which we have. It will stop us looking and asking the Welsh Assembly and an independent inquiry to look at what can be done to reduce the problems that have been caused by man over the years, which is now impacting upon the residents in my ward, other wards, your own ward as the Council for Forest, Councillor Powderill. This is just making it a nonsense, and Lord knows what members of the public are going to think have been affected when they see the person who's actually the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting bringing forward a motion to negate an amendment to a motion to negate a motion to ask for an independent inquiry. Everybody comes at it with clean hands and says, there it is, it's an independent inquiry. But no, so what we are saying, or what it seems that the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee is saying is, oh, no, we don't want anybody looking at what's been going on here. We'll deal with that ourselves. And that it really isn't how we should be dealing with the problem which occurred in February, and which no doubt is going to occur as you listen to the submissions from Councillor Vaughan and Councillor Griffiths at the start. So what I would suggest we do is not vote for the amendment, vote for the motion as is, and let's actually get
You're speaking on the amendment, Councillor
I'm
Powell.
up to 3 minutes 40 now, I know, Chair. I'm up to 3 minutes 43 now. So when we had the debate earlier, I had a person in my ward I could not get a boat to on that day. I couldn't get the fire service to come and get a boat. When we did get him out of Zion Street to the top end of Zion Street, unfortunately, that gentleman had a heart attack and passed away. No one has mentioned any deaths that occurred in anybody else's wards, but I had one in my ward, but no one's interested, and nothing is covered in this amendment by the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny and the Chair for Economic Development and the Cabinet Member for Economic Development, Regeneration, when people actually died and you don't even know about it, you don't even listen about it. All you're concerned with is making sure no one points the finger at you or your political group. And that's not what this motion is about. It's not about that.
You are out of time.
Nearly 40 to 38, Chair. I'm timing it for you.
Well, you might be, but I'm the one who's saying it. And according to my watch, you are out of time. And it's not your decision to withdraw the amendment. The amendment has been moved and seconded. Councillor Webber.
Am I off mute, Chair? Thank you, Presiding Officer. I wasn't aware that the leader would have to leave, but he has left. So what I'm going to say, I'm speaking from the heart, not off a prepared speech. I've just made notes while members have been speaking. No one in this chamber will deny that communities were traumatised, devastated and havoc wreaked by what happened in February. The Labour Group will not be supporting the motion because while such an inquiry is ongoing, and an inquiry takes a very long length of time, it would impede the ongoing work that has started and will continue. Significant funding has already been sourced and many projects have already been started. And there is a proviso of further schemes to be looked at favourably when these schemes are drawn up. Openness and transparency will be adhered to. The Section 19 reports, they will be looked at as well. And as far as being in a psychiatric ward is concerned, over the years, I could have crumbled on many, many occasions. I've had hundreds of properties in my ward flooded, hundreds. I didn't, I stayed strong. I lobbied and I succeeded in getting a flood alleviation scheme. I have never and never will play politics with residents in my ward, and no one on this side of the chamber has mentioned playing politics. This is people's homes, families and lives. The amendment will not negate anything. It will complement the work that is going on. There is no intention to curtail or hinder any questions, involvement or in-depth detail regarding the county borough-wide devastation that has occurred. Thank you.
Yeah, could I just quickly come in to say something as I have to leave?
You are next up, Councillor James.
Oh, thank you. Yes, sorry about this, but the building I'm in is 5 minutes from closing, so I've got to go. I am supportive of the original Plaid Cymru motion, but I'm conscious I'm not going to be able to vote on it because I've got to leave. So I just wanted to say that. And also with the next motion about the PPE, I'm also supportive of that as well. So you can, but obviously I can't vote. I'm not going to be
that either. Well,
Yeah,
have a
so-
nice night, Councillor James.
Okie dokie, thank you. All right.
Councillor Cox, on Gymraeg.
No, yn Saesneg, in English. Can I respectfully ask members of the Labour group to reconsider their position on this? I do that because although Councillor Vychan and Councillor Griffiths have outlined quite clearly the reasons for an inquiry, they've also read out some of the effects on the people who have been affected. It is my experience and the experience of most people that the direct voice of those affected has the greatest effect. There is nothing, absolutely nothing in our procedure that gives voice to those who are directly affected, and it is only through an inquiry that they will get their voice. Can I deal also with the wrecking amendment from the Labour group? The deputy leader has suggested, spuriously, that an inquiry will halt work. That is not true. There is no reason, absolutely no reason, why any work should be halted, delayed, stopped in any way because an inquiry is being undertaken. That inquiry is a wider inquiry about what are the effects, the long-term effects on our valleys, what went wrong both here and in the way in which NRW and other actors act on our behalf. So there would be nothing that stopped us going, and that's why I asked the question earlier to the leader that wasn't answered. I asked whether in our process already work is being undertaken, but where we have a scrutiny process that is being undertaken at the same time, that's not stopping work happening. Neither would an inquiry. It is a spurious argument. It is an argument to avoid the inquiry. And I have to say, I don't understand when the Labour MP for the Rhondda supports a flooding inquiry in England, but in Rhondda Cynon-Taf, in Rhondda, which he supposedly represents, he refuses to support that. So does the Labour group. I can only ask them to reconsider their position because their position is untenable. Their position does not make sense, and their position denies those people who have been affected their voice and their chance to make a difference.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gareth Hughes.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The flooding in February was absolutely devastating for many hundreds of families across the borough. I've witnessed firsthand the distress, upset and absolute chaos it caused the family, turning their lives upside down and then further compounded by COVID restrictions. I can completely understand that these families want answers and reassurances that where possible the necessary repair and upgrade works are undertaken. Having read the NRW reports and attended numerous scrutiny sessions, including the inquiry session, I am confident that the relevant authorities have undertaken a robust investigation and as a result have a good understanding of the causes and are already in the process of developing, designing, and in some cases on-site implementing and delivering flood mitigation works. Having listened to these reports and attended the scrutiny sessions, it's evident that there is learning for all agencies involved and collaborative multi-agency working is required moving forward. From my experience in Pentre, this is already happening on the ground between NRW, Welsh Water and RCT Council. In my opinion, it is clear that the major cause of flooding was simply the unprecedented volume of rain that fell in February following 6 of the wettest months on record and simply overwhelming flood assets. The vast majority of flood defence infrastructure worked to its design specifications, i.e. 1 in 100 year event. At the point at which these levels were surpassed, the defences were simply overwhelmed. And it is worth noting that the Storm Dennis is now considered a 1 in 290 year event, which would explain why these defences were breached. I do not support a public inquiry, as I do not believe that it will do anything to help those who were flooded. In my opinion, it is political grandstanding that will simply confirm what we already know. And I would far prefer that this time, energy and resource is spent on delivering solutions for our communities. And I will therefore be supporting the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davis yn Gymraeg.
Yn Gymraeg, sgwylwch yn dda, Mr Llywydd. Mr Llywydd, rwy'n credu mae'r achos i gael ymchwiliad annibynnol wedi ei wneud yn barod. Oherwydd dyna'r unig ffordd i sicrhau atebion i'r llwyth o gwestiynau mae trigolion wedi codi ers y llifogydd. Mae'r sefyllfa yn atgoffa o'r galwad am ymchwiliad o'r blaen I domen sbwriel Nant y Gwyddon, a oedd yn llygru y cwmronda dros 20 mlynedd yn ôl. Pryd ni, roedd y cyngor llafur fel nawr yn gwrthwynebu ymchwiliad. Ond sefydlwyd un gan y cynulliad dan arweiniad Mr David Pershing arbenigwr yn y maes. Ac ar ôl ymchwiliad trylwr, daeth yr argymelliad I gau'r domen ar unwaith. Heb yr ymchwiliad, rwy'n tybio bysau tomen Nant y Gwyddon dal I fod ar agor ac yn dal I llygru'r cwm. Yn fy marn I, mae craffu a ymchwiliad mewnol y cyngor ddim yn ddinogol I faterion mor bwysig a llifogydd mor eang. Mae fel myfyriwr yn marcio I waith cartre ei hunan. Mr Llywydd, byddwn ni byth yn cael troeloldeb ac atebion cyflawn heb ymchwiliad annibynnol dan arbenigwr. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch. Councillor Yeo.
No, thank you, Presiding Officer. I think my point is covered by Councillor Hughes, really. So I don't want to prolong the debate any longer than it is. Councillor Webber, thank you.
Councillor Karen Morgan.
Presiding Officer. Dear me. I really wish we would stop the defensive tone. We've had it tonight again now. We had it in overviewing scrutiny. Organisations that conduct independent investigations are seen as more credible and can more easily gain the confidence of constituents and stakeholders. In today's political climate of mistrust, why wouldn't this council want to gain the confidence of the public that we serve? I asked earlier about the next stages in the Section 19 reporting process. The reason I ask is because I haven't seen any mention of independent assurance. The NRW report was voluntarily independently assured. Why wouldn't RCT want to do the same? Some may and have raised understandable concerns perhaps about cost and time. But although an independent investigation may involve more time and expense, there is researched evidence that it carries significantly greater weight in the eyes of other bodies such as courts, regulators, auditors, and other interested parties who may later judge that investigation with the benefit of hindsight. This council needs to put aside the politics. This is not about blame. We need to stop the defensive tone, as I said earlier. This is about providing assurance to the public of being objective, transparent, and open to scrutiny. The most important third-party interests here are the residents and businesses who were flooded. They're also expert witnesses, and they need, not just need, but they deserve to have their voices heard. The only way we can do that is through that independent investigation. The amendment in front of us negates that motion and does nothing to achieve the openness and transparency that people are seeking. Thank you.
Right, members, I've got Councillor Bevan is going to speak, and then I'm going to move progress. I'm going to ask Councillor Vaughan to come back in. Councillor Bevan.
Yes, I'll be brief, and I reserve my comments to the end, Presiding Officer, because I wanted to hear what members is. What I can't see in all this is what a public inquiry will produce at the end of the day for our residents. There is enough work going on now between the agencies in Rhondda and Taff and outside Rhondda and Taff on Wales basis. And I'm sure those are the people, the experts, will have the solutions that can hopefully address the concerns and the issues we're going to be facing going forward. So I will still remain supportive of the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman, would you like to come in now before Councillor Vaughan?
I noticed there are other hands there.
I
in
can keep
advance
going
line.
all, Councillor Jarman, I think we could keep going all night. I have to move this.
You know, their hand was up before. They're entitled to ask questions. I thought that was the purpose of
well, we
a
can keep going
democracy.
if you like, and we'll go on until we're out of time. That's,
if
you know,
you
I
were-
think now.
All too often, members of this council are not given fair play to make remarks on such important and key issues. And I'd ask you to reflect on whether you invite my two
think,
colleagues who were
Councillor
indicated.
I've been
in
very
the
fair. I'm
meanwhile-
trying to bring
In the
people in.
meanwhile,
Now,
in the meanwhile,
Councillor Jarman, have you anything to add to this debate?
you know me better than that, presiding officer. If I had nothing to contribute, I wouldn't ask to speak.
Right, can you then say it, please?
That's fine, so that we understand each other.
That's fine.
I would repeat the appeal made by Councillor Cox for the Labour Group to reconsider withdrawing this motion. There's too much at stake here. The final analysis, if this amendment is passed, is that all will happen is the leader will write a letter to the First Minister, giving him a progress report on where the council stands at the moment. Yet, in answer to a question posed by Councillor Pickering earlier this evening, the leader says that they are in constant dialogue with Welsh Government on flood drainage, etc. The leader also said in response to previous reports at item 10 that there have been substantial investment and that he is in conversations with ministers almost on a daily basis. So I wonder if that includes the First Minister as well. So those conversations and correspondence that the amendment would be inviting the leader to speak to the First Minister by virtue of an exchange of correspondence is an absolute nonsense. Because if he hasn't been speaking to the First Minister about the effects of flooding, he would be failing in his duty. Can I just say, presiding officer, look, Labour's position is untenable, and it doesn't make sense, based on the contributions you've heard in presenting the motion, that we shouldn't support those thousands of people who are appealing for us to do the decent and right thing. Can I refer briefly then to Councillor Gareth Hughes' contribution in support of the amendment in relation to what he feels should have been done and hasn't been done or has been done. Can I just say that Chris Bryant didn't agree with Councillor Gareth Hughes' analysis of the NRW report, because Councillor Hughes indicated today he's quite content with the report that was produced. Chris Bryant, MP for the Rhondda, threatened to take legal action against Natural Resources Wales unless they put their hand up in relation to the flooding in Pentre at least. Of course, Labour could save the MP for Rhondda a lot of money if they supported this independent inquiry, which would be free and gratis as far as his investment is concerned. It is, unfortunately, I made my case as far as the amendment is concerned. It is not a safe amendment, it is an abuse of the democratic process, and I don't withdraw from that position. The Labour group should hang their head in shame unless they withdraw this amendment in the wider public interest.
Thank you, Councillor.
Chair. Hello, could I just ask if the councillors whose areas have been flooded could speak? I think it's vital that we get our views here. And
Councillor Weaver, there are a few people left to speak, but this has gone on and on. We have debated it well. Now, if you want me to allow every councillor, you can expect this to go well beyond the 8 o'clock. I really don't see that any more. I think the Clyde Cymru group has put over their point.
Point of clarification, Mr. Presiding Officer, the RCT Independent Group have no issue with suspending standing orders, except we already have, to continue the debate, even if it goes past 8 o'clock. We're all in the comfort of our homes.
Councillor Powell, I think if I could see a benefit with the additional comments, then I would. But I think you've made your point as a Plaid Cymru group, as an independent group, and as a Labour group. I think on this basis, Councillor Hughes, you've indicated, and I've got an understanding of why do you really need to come back in on that point.
In the event of time, Presiding Officer, I'll keep it very brief. Just as I was name-checked by Councillor Jarman, Chris Bryant isn't a member of this chamber. I'm a member of this chamber. And secondly, Chris Bryant didn't disagree with the contents of the report. What he disagreed with was around whether they were liable, not in terms of causes or solutions for the flooding. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Thank you. Councillor Vychan, I'm going to let you close this debate on your motion as was.
Thank you. It's evident from the speeches we've heard from the Labour group just now that the amendment is because they do not support an independent inquiry. So it does actually confirm that it changes the meaning of or purpose of the motion, which is contrary to the Constitution. So can I ask, after I've spoken, could Mr. Wilkins please clarify and reconsider his advice, given that he's heard that clarification from the Labour group that it changes the purpose of the motion to remove the independent inquiry? Can you clarify that you're still content on that advice? Because it is contrary to the legal advice that we've received as a group. So I don't think the amendment is actually valid. And actually, there's a really clear way forward for this. Labour can vote, if you're against an independent inquiry, which evidently you are, you can vote against the motion as it is. We don't need this amendment for that to happen. So actually, it's very simple. We can move forward as you want us to do, Presiding Officer, so we can finish early. But it's very, very easy. Just vote against the motion. Vote against an independent inquiry, because actually you're playing politics with this amendment. Because you are playing politics, because you won't vote against an independent inquiry. If you have that courage and conviction, vote against an independent inquiry and don't allow this amendment to go through. Withdraw it or reconsider your advice, please, because I don't think it's valid. You've confirmed that it changes this motion. In terms of other points, if I was leader of this council...
The point of information, Mr. Presiding Officer, the point of information is the fact that this motion has already been voted down over scrutiny with Councillor Jarman proposed it.
Can we come to the point? The motion has had an amendment. Councillor Vychan, I've asked you now to speak on your motion before I take the vote. I am. To come in, but I also take offence at you saying I want to end this meeting early. It's not healthy to have these meetings for such long times. It's not healthy. Okay. Now, please come to your point and end.
Sorry, I'm going to allow my time. So I'd just like to know, what do we fear from this? And why would anybody want to deny justice? If I was leader of the council and having seen the devastation as well as the economic impact on the council's own resources, I would welcome such an inquiry and see it as a way of securing the necessary investment in flood prevention measures in the future. I'd see it as a way of securing scrutiny of not only NRW, Dŵr Cymru, Welsh Government and ourselves, but also of the UK Government's response. And I'd want to see an inquiry ask the UK Government, just as the leader has done so today on Twitter, why there has been no extra funding to help with Storm Dennis repairs and invest in flood prevention measures in response to climate change. If I was leader, I'd also welcome the opportunity to have independent scrutiny of the council's own response in terms of what worked and what didn't, so that if we were in such a situation again, our emergency response plans were as robust as possible. We have to be honest about this, otherwise we will make some of the same mistakes again and not learn valuable lessons. We all serve our communities first and foremost. We are elected to represent them and to fight for them. Let the voices and experience of those affected be heard by supporting the motion without the amendment.
Thank you. Right, members, the motion has been put for the amendment.
I've
So-
asked for legal advice, please, if Mr. Wilkins would like to reconsider his legal advice.
Mr. Wilkins.
I'm not going to change the view. I presented my view to the proper officer who took the decision. I'm not going to comment on the debate, obviously, and how that's affected. My view was taken before the debate, so it would be impossible to comment on the advice on that basis.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins.
Councillor Powell, can I have some clarity off Mr. Wilkins, please? I've just sent a message, but I haven't received a response to it yet. My understanding on the procedures and rules for debate is that if, for argument's sake, I put a motion up and somebody put an amendment to the motion, then we would deal with the amendment to the motion first and then deal with the motion subject to any amendments.
We are, Councillor.
That's what we're doing, Councillor. That's what we're doing.
We're dealing
Why,
with the
so there's not going to be a summation to the amendment then, it's just...
No, we're going to take a vote on the amendment now as called by the presiding officer, Councillor Powell.
So,
if the amendment is carried, it becomes the substantive motion. We then take a vote on the substantive motion.
The amendment has been moved and seconded. Can I have the vote on the amendment, please? Labour Group, are you in favour of the amendment?
Yeah, presiding officer, would you want me to present that vote to yourself? The Labour Group will be supporting the amendment. No politics are being played. There is no absolute nonsense. There is constant dialogue from the leader, not just to Welsh.
Excuse me. All you've got to do is present the vote. You can't speak.
Jarman, let's stop. Councillor Webber, does the Labour Group support the amendment?
We do.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman, does the Plaid Cymru Group support the amendment?
We reject it resoundingly.
Thank you. Councillor Powell, does the Independent Group support the amendment?
The amendment is absolute nonsense, to paraphrase Councillor Webber.
Councillor James,
we will not.
The amendment has been moved, seconded and voted. The amendment is carried. The amendment becomes the substantive motion. Members.
Presiding officer, can we have a current update on the amount of members in the chamber, please?
Mr. Hannigan.
Happy to preside that, presiding officer. There are 38 Labour members, 16 Plaid Cymru, 1 Conservative and 5 RCT independents.
And when was that last counted, please?
Mr. Hannigan.
I'll confirm that with my colleague. That was within the last minute.
Thank you. Right, members, the amendment is the substantive motion. Councillor Webber, can you give the Labour's group?
The Labour Group will be supporting what is now the substantive motion.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman.
Plaid Cymru Group will be voting against
Thank
the amended
you.
motion.
Councillor Powell.
I would like to pick up on some of the points in the now substantive motion.
I would just like you to vote the substantive
I dare say you would, presiding officer.
Well,
but
you understand, you've been a councillor long enough to know.
I have, so I know of substantive motion in front of me, which allows me then to debate the motion which is in front of me. We've just debated a motion which has been amended. This is now an amendment to the motion. Ergo, it's a substantive motion, which I wasn't talking to about earlier. That was the Plaid Cymru motion. This is now the substantive motion, which allows us then to debate that motion. Would you ask the legal officer if that's the case, please?
Mr. Wilkins.
Yeah, he's correct. He's allowed to speak on the substantive motion.
Councillor Powell, would you like to speak on the substantive motion? And if it's the same as what you said previously, please make it quick.
Well, I have 5 minutes, Chair, to actually speak on this motion. I'll make it as quick as 5 minutes if you wish. We see that the council has noticed that the significant costs related to the recovery and has been estimated to be at least 500 million. We need really to have a good look at why we are spending 500 million on things that have occurred to the residents of our authority from outside of the borough. I'm sure that our environmental health services people would actually be able to give us some indication of where this flooding has occurred and the reasoning behind it. We saw the devastation that occurred in our wards, and as I mentioned earlier, the river levels higher upstream were somewhat higher or somewhat lower than the river levels in Pontypridd. Now, the reason then we had the higher river level in Pontypridd was because of the confluences of the Cynnon and the Taff coming from outside of one borough, which would be Merthyr, and from tributaries in Caerphilly, actually raising that level because the floodplains have been built upon in those areas. And I look at this notice of motion and see we're talking about 500 million, but we're not really looking at the issues that have affected our borough. So we are spending money that we didn't actually cause to the residents. The river, and we can take on board the Storm Dennis and Storm Ciara, etc. But if people continue to build on floodplains, then we are going to continue to have issues where we have bottlenecks in the river, for argument's sake, at the White Bridge on the Taff, when we've got a constricted river from Beryl Road over onto Zion Street, the water levels are going to rise there. You can do other things about the fluvial aspects, but when you've got flooding on such a narrow scale, and you could see what happened in your ward as well, Councillor Powdrill, where the banks were overflown because of the volume of water, again then being increased upon coming down from the Rhondda, where we can see a lot of the construction that's taking place on a lot of floodplains there. We then end up being the bottleneck here for a lot of that water coming to now. And this is on 500 pounds, the 500 million. And I'm speaking to it now, and I'm thinking that perhaps
get to the point, please.
Well, the point is that we're not actually dealing on this motion. This is why I'm saying I won't be supporting the motion, is because it actually doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It doesn't say what it says on the tin. It doesn't actually do, and it doesn't actually protect anybody in Pontypridd. It doesn't protect people in my ward, or in your ward, Councillor Powdrill, or in Councillor Fackland's. What it's actually doing is just saying that we're going to wash our hands of something, and we're not going to be able to actually deal with it on this motion which is put to us.
The motion has been put, Councillor Powell.
I'm speaking to it, and that's why I'm speaking not to support it, Chair.
Right, you're not supporting it, that's fine. You've had your say. Thank you.
I have my 5 minutes. I get 5 minutes to speak on this, surely to be.
If you're talking about the motion, but you're talking about
the motion. I'm saying why we shouldn't be supporting it. This is a lot of nonsense. If you keep interrupting me, we're just going to continue.
No, you're not going
to finish early.
You've said enough. Right, members, we're now on the motion, and I'm not going to go down this route again because we can go this way. It's not productive, and to be quite honest, it's just not right. Now, if you want to speak on the motion, that's fine. But if you're not going to, I'm not going to go down all the other routes because we're still waiting for reports. Councillor Cox.
Dear Llywydd, I'm going to be speaking against the substantive motion now. And I would again ask the council to vote against this motion because it does absolutely nothing.
Right.
It is.
That's clear. You've said exactly what you said in the first one, and you have asked the council, and the council ignored that. So if
can I just say, sorry, I honestly don't like to get into a debate with the chair, and I respect the will of the chair. It is difficult once the motion has been changed then to differentiate that, and also because this is a public record, I think it is important that people are given an opportunity to state clearly why they are opposed to this report. So can I just I won't take very more minutes. I'll take a minute to conclude on this because I don't think it warrants more than that. It is a pointless motion that achieves nothing for our communities. It will not improve the life of one person in our communities. Earlier on in the debate, people were accused of grandstanding. This is grandstanding. It achieves nothing. And those people who will support this now amended motion, I think really should hang their heads in shame.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shelley Rees-Owen, you've asked to speak, so I'll call you in now, please.
Yes, thank you. My hand has been up a while. I mean, I'd just like to stop this aggression first and foremost. Yes, thank you. I mean, following on from what colleagues have said, this motion does nothing to help the people in Pentre sleep at night. And I'll give you an example of what worries me is that any report the council may produce, they're seen as investigating themselves. And NRW did that recently. And I'll just give you an example of one piece of information that was wrong in the NRW report. They said that they thought that they should have an improvement they could make would be to have better communication with people who lived in communities that were vulnerable to flooding, like Pentre. Prior to February this year, Pentre hadn't been flooded for 60 years plus. It was an inaccuracy that didn't escape people. Pentre people don't trust organisations to investigate themselves. And there will always, for that reason, there will always be a question mark over any report the council writes in itself. There will always be a question mark of its validity and its transparency. And this motion, this substantive motion, does nothing except let people down. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right. Councillor Weaver, you haven't spoken. So again, can you speak, please?
I can, Chair, and thank you very much for that. I'm very disheartened this evening, I have to say. My thoughts with all the people that's been flooded, and I think if everyone in this meeting today could just sit back and reflect how they would feel if it is their property that was flooded, that they have to throw all their furniture out, that they couldn't cook, they had no electric, they had no water. How would they feel? You have to take on board people as human beings, and I'm afraid we're not. We have been out the whole time in Pentre, as our colleagues have elsewhere, I know. And we have seen the devastation in Pentre, and we've seen the people that is petrified for having any raindrops at all because they see another flood come in. And I totally get that. And I think with people in this, I say this room, people in this room voting against our members is disgraceful. Our motion, sorry. We have to take people's views into consideration. It's not just a one-man band. We all work as a team, and we must get the best we can for our communities. And we're not going the right way about it. By having an independent inquiry, we could bring all the forces together and work together for the betterment of our communities. Nothing political about that. It's open, it's transparent, and this is what we need. Thank you.
Presiding Officer, I'm going to ask, can we move suspension of standing orders to deal with this notice of motion and the further notice of motion that is on the agenda that we carry over to the next council business, and I move as such.
That's seconded.
Presiding Officer, I'll second that.
Thank you.
Can the Deputy Leader recite the
we move suspension of standing orders to deal with this item on the agenda and any further business that's left on the agenda that we carry over, Councillor Jarman, given that it's 8 o'clock now, and that we can deal with this item that we're dealing with now. And I suggest we move, I've moved suspension, it's 1958.
Thank you.
Can I ask that the Deputy Leader considers not suspending the rest of the business? It is important business. It really
But the deputy leader has.
And we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it is an urgent item of business.
It is. Councillor Webber, you have moved it. Councillor Dana Wynne-Jones has seconded. Does the Labour group support?
Could I have some advice off the legal officer, please, Chair?
Not until I take the vote, no.
Well, if you could be taking the vote, but you don't need to.
Chair, presiding officer, I'm happy for Councillor Powell to take legal advice. What I've suggested, the second, if we don't do this now, we're going to be past 8 o'clock.
I think
and we're dealing with this item.
Absolutely, very quickly. Could the legal officer tell us if when we suspended standing orders at the start of the meeting, they covered this part of the meeting as well?
We didn't.
No, Councillor Powell, we didn't suspend standing orders for the purposes of extending the meeting beyond 3 hours at the beginning of the
Councillor
meeting.
Webber, the Labour group has supported the suspension.
Yes.
Councillor Jarman.
Well, there's no need for our vote, they can carry it. I'm disappointed that they had no consideration for PPE people.
Councillor Powell.
I'm not happy really with suspending standing orders, I must be honest, when we're not going to debate what's going on with PPE. I don't see the point. It's not going to take us 2 minutes for that.
But we are at 8 o'clock now. Thankfully, it was in time. Suspension of standing orders has been moved. We'll now continue with the debate.
Was it voted on, Chair?
Yes, it was. The Labour group supported it. Plaid Cymru said that their vote will not affect it, and I did ask you. So it has been voted and moved. Right. Councillor.
Move the question we put, Chair. I have not spoken to started more, Chair. I'm moving the question we put.
Mr. Hannigan, members have indicated they wish to speak on the motion, the substantive motion. Can I take those questions, or can I now have the question be put?
Once the question is put, you do have to seek Councillor's decision on that, presiding officer.
Right, members, the question has been put, so I'm now going to take the vote on the substantive, which
Was
is
seconded.
Was it?
We have a seconder, please, for the record, please.
Second.
Second.
Right, it has been seconded. Councillor Webber.
Presiding officer, I just want to clarify, my hand wasn't up for the substantive motion. I want a clarification. When we suspended standing orders, how that notice, does that notice of motion affect the allocation of notice of motion for the next meetings going forward?
Mr. Hannigan.
That will, thanks, presiding officer. That will have no impact on the allocation of standing orders, and the business that obviously now will not be considered that one item of business will be deferred to the next meeting of council.
Councillor Webber, the Labour group.
We will be supporting what is now the substantive motion, presiding officer.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman.
What are we voting on now? The question be put or not?
Yeah, we haven't voted on that yet.
Oh, dear. Mr. Hannigan.
We'll need to seek council's consent on the question being put, presiding officer.
The Labour group.
We accept the fact that the question is being moved and seconded. The question be put. Yes, we support the question is put.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman.
No, on the basis of it stifling debate unnecessarily.
Thank you. Councillor Powell.
Absolutely not. We don't see debate restricted in this chamber, virtual chamber. Terrible.
Will be put. Councillor Webber.
I've already said that we would support this, what is now the substantive motion, presiding officer.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman.
A resounding no.
Thank you. Councillor Powell.
Absolutely not.
Thank you. The question was put. it was moved, the motion, the substantive motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. Mr. Hannigan, would you like to sum up now?
Yeah, I'd like to give notice that I'm going to move suspension of standing orders for the last item of business on our agenda to be dealt with tonight.
Second that. Oh, somebody else, I can second it. We'll all second it.
Mr. Hannigan, can you come back in? Because Councillor Webber actually said that the item of business would be moved to the next meeting.
That is correct, Presiding Officer.
Right, on that basis, that's where that item will be moved. We've been here long.
But I can.
Mr. Hannigan?
I think Councillor Jarman's on mute, Mr. Presiding Officer, but I'm sure she was saying that she can move motion to suspend standing orders at any point during any part of the debates.
Mr. Hannigan?
It's at your discretion, Presiding Officer. Obviously, a determination has already been made by Council and a majority was shown for that determination.
I'm happy that it goes to the next meeting.
Can I say that was not the case exclusively? The motion put by the Deputy Leader was to go beyond 8 o'clock and also not to consider the item of business at the last item of business.
Carried forward to the next council meeting.
I've put a different motion that we do deal with the last item of business. It's past 8 o'clock. I haven't mentioned that part.
Councillor Webber did say, and I was happy on that basis, and I am still happy on that basis, that this will go to the next item of business. Mr. Hannigan, can you give us the vote, please?
Yes, happy to confirm the vote. 38 Labour members, 16 Plaid, 5 RCT independent councillors. And just to clarify from the previous result given, while Councillor James's attendance is showing, obviously he had given his apologies and left the meeting before the vote was taken. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Thank you. Members, that is the end of this meeting this evening.